Okay, shalom. Right, this lesson has been a long time coming. So today is Zot Hanukkah. Okay, so it's a very, very special holy day. It's the 8th day of Hanukkah, and I am so glad that this light in this teaching is going to be shining into this world today. So even though if you're listening to this teaching on a day that's not this day, know that this light that is contained in this teaching, and it's taken me a long time to put this together with any kind of confidence at all, that it first emerged on Zot Hanukkah. So I'm really pleased about that. Right, let's get on, because the gematria, when we eventually get to it, is unbelievable. And this lesson is called Metatron, Moshe, Moses, and Moshiach, giving sight to the blind. Okay, so really, really wonderful. Like I say, it's been a long time coming. It took me a long time to wrestle to finally have the right order and the right things to say and get the right sources to back everything that I was saying up. Let's proceed. Right, because this is going to be quite a long lesson unless you're going to get a shortened version of it. These are the lesson objectives. Okay, so we know where we're going to be going. The first one is to show how the Torah, which is ultimately the name Yod-Heh-Vav, a revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Vav, viewed at this time of exile from a Jewish perspective, through the eyes of Yehuda, is like a form of blindness to the truth that Od Yosef Chai, Yosef is still alive. And this concept of Yosef is being alive is incredibly important, because it's the truth. Okay, so missing the letter Ayin from the name of Moshiach. So anybody who's used to my teachings, that's where within rabbinical Judaism, when they use the name, when they're referring to Jesus, Yeshua, they use the name Yeshu. So take off the letter Ayin. And Ayin means I. So because of this desecration of his name, it means that they ultimately can't see the truth of Od Yosef Chai, Yosef is still alive. And by the way, we're in the Torah portion today, Zot Hanukkah, where Yosef is revealed to his brothers. So it's the second Torah portion, and this is Monday, 2021. And we're in the Torah portion where finally Yosef reveals himself to his brothers, and it's incredible that this is coming out today. It's just a great joy for me. So the second point is to show that the Torah, Yod-Heh-Vav, the Torah really is a revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Vav. The Torah that we have got, however, the way that we interpret it, through our various blindnesses that are caused by the exile into which we have been exiled for an ultimate purpose of good by Yod-Heh-Vav himself, the Torah is ultimately a revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Vav. However, we have got both revelation and concealment of the name Yod-Heh-Vav. Okay, so we've got to try and overcome that. So, but to show that the Torah Yod-Heh-Vav, viewed from the perspective of Yosef, i.e. the tribes of Israel, through the eyes of Yosef, as a wonderful opportunity to bring clarity and certainty to Torah regards Mashiach ben Yosef. So what do I really mean by this? You know, I have studied a lot of Torah from the Jewish perspective, through the eyes of Yehuda. And I spent 7 years converting towards Judaism, rabbinical Judaism, Orthodox Judaism. I went to live in a Jewish community, sent my children to Jewish schools. They learnt Hebrew, I learnt Hebrew, went to Israel 20 times, things like that. So I have got a perspective from the Jewish perspective. I went to shul every single week, you know, and all the festivals. Went to Israel for a lot of the festivals, including Hanukkah twice, I think. And so I have got that perspective, that Jewish perspective. I know what it's like in that community, and to identify as a Torah observant Jewish person, you know, albeit that I was going through a conversion process, but you're very much immersed into that world view, okay? And at the time when I was there, I totally and utterly and absolutely believed that was my my perspective, my view, and that's the way that I wanted to live my life. So it was something that was very real and sincere to me. I went through an awakening back to my true identity. So I've seen it from both sides, if you like. So this is to show, so through the eyes of Yosef. So even though I've experienced that, my identity now, I abandoned my faith in Yeshua because there were so many anomalies I couldn't reconcile at all. I had no option, given my understanding of Torah and given me going towards Torah and immersing myself in the Jewish perspective or the Hebrew roots. That's how it started off. I had no choice but to abandon a faith in Torah because, the whole of Christianity is nothing but one big hoax and a lie. But there is a powerful truth in that. And I had to fully let go in order to find that. And then I came back to my faith in Torah, went into Judaism, really immersed myself in all the wonderful things to do with Judaism, but also got very harshly battered by the not so nice, pleasant sides of Judaism, the error of Rav, just as I got battered and beaten by the Christian experience, So how do I see myself now? I see myself as somebody who is very much connected to the perspective of Yosef. Okay, so I am a born-again believer, but I do not consider myself Christian at all. I believe that I am from the house of Yosef. That is my belief, and I've had various awakenings and suggestions as to why that is so, but that's certainly how I identify at this time. And I'm able to see through the eyes of Yosef, and I had a real awakening just lately because I've spent so long reading the Torah from a Jewish point of view, because most of the Torah written is from a Jewish point of view. It's totally from the perspective of a native-born Jew. Somebody who's lived their entire life as a Jew, totally immersed into that worldview, and has never tasted or experienced anything else, and certainly never experienced Yeshua. So, talking about Yeshua, the Mashiach ben Yosef. So, that's obviously not who I am. Although I tried to be that because I knew I wasn't a Christian, and I knew that Yod Heh was doing something in my life and I couldn't quite figure out what. And as far as I was aware at the time, it was looking a lot like the Jewish people had it right and the Christians had it wrong, until I experienced that the Jews had it wrong too. Okay, and then there was a conflict there, and anyway, I ended up where I am now. Somebody who's benefited from two wonderful perspectives, one looking at the world through the eyes of Yehuda, and then where I am at now. I recognise that that's not truly who I am, because I truly am a born-again believer who truly does believe that Yeshua is the Mashiach, but it took me a long time to regain my faith in Yeshua being the Mashiach. Okay, so I just wanted to... It took me a long time because it's very complicated to find the truth within the Torah regarding Mashiach. And to have very secure, certain concepts of Mashiach that fit with reality. It's a toil to gain that level of confidence. Anyway, so that's where I am now, looking through the eyes of Yosef. And I believe from this perspective, and I know that I'm not the only one who has this perspective. There's a lot of us out there in the world that can share in this experience that I've experienced. And we are looking at Torah from the eyes of Yosef, somebody who has been touched and imbued with the soul of Moshe ben Yosef himself. We have been alivened and awakened, born again. We have had a new addition to our soul. We have had an addition to our soul, a Yosef to our soul, and that addition to our soul is a part of the soul of Moshe ben Yosef, which is Yeshua. He's awakened us, and some of his soul lives within us, and it's a very transforming experience. And people who have experienced it there's a kindred spirit, if you like. But the problem is, then this light is very much descended into the Edomite, Greco-Roman, Christian worldview, and in that it gets all distorted. Okay, and therein lies the problem, and that's why I've had to go from a separation from that worldview into Torah Judaism worldview, and then realise the error in that, and somehow come back with the light from both perspectives. The two eyes, if you like, one from Yehuda and one from Yosef. So I think I feel privileged, basically, but I do very much think I'm coming from Yosef's point of view, but I have got that vision, if you like, and that view and that perspective that I gained from those 7 years within pursuing rabbinic Torah Orthodox Judaism. Okay, I'm hoping I make myself clear. I want to show, however, this insight and giving of sight to the blind, because I suppose I'm looking now from the eyes of Yosef and seeing how blind Yehuda is, but really, I suppose, like I've just said, there's a blindness from within Yehuda. One eye blinded in Yehuda and one eye blinded in Yosef, if you like, from their perspective, need to both come together to both be able to see. So hopefully, in this teaching, it can show. And this is giving sight to the blind can bring forth a revelation of the Mashiach from within Yehuda, Moshiach ben David. Okay, so even though Yehuda is blind to the truth that Yosef od Yosef Chai, okay, which is absolutely critical, still from within Yehuda will come forth Mashiach ben David. The final revelation of Mashiach will come from Yehuda, the tribe of Yehuda. Okay, it won't come from the tribe of Yosef. Okay, so there has to be unity between Yosef and Mashiach ben David. Yosef and Yehuda. There has to be, in order for Mashiach ben David to be revealed from Yehuda. Okay, so even though I'm going to be talking about the blindness within Yehuda, I do recognise also there's a blindness within Yosef, or certainly within Christianity. I mean, absolutely, completely, the blind leading the blind. But I want to also show, because I don't want to be disrespectful, we've got to show absolute respect to our Jewish brothers and sisters who have got that Jewish perspective, but they have got to know that that is not the only perspective through which we gain access to the name Yod He Vav He. He has revealed himself to Yosef in a unique and wonderful way, and they are blind to that completely, and they need that blindness removing in order for Moshiach ben David to be birthed from within Yehuda. So this is why I'm excited about this teaching. We've got to make progress. We have to have unity. And I honestly feel that I'm a very privileged person, and I feel that I in this teaching, along with other people, I'm not just talking about myself, I have got the opportunity to illuminate people's eyes, to the truth of Od Yosef Chai. Od Yosef Chai, he lives in me. But, I mean, I'm talking about the Od Yosef Chai. I'm talking about the bigger perspective. I'm just a macrocosmic representation. There's two ways of viewing this one, the little version, which I represent, and then obviously there's a microcosmic version of a revelation of Mashiach ben Yosef. But in the little is the big, you know. So I hope by being my little version to the absolute fullest degree that I possibly can be, somehow that will bring forth a revelation of the bigger version of Mashiach ben Yosef to our Jewish brothers. And in doing so, once they have caught sight of this truth, then that can help birth the revelation and incarnation of Mashiach ben David. Okay, let's go and have a look. Right, so we're going to start some teachings from Bereshit, Zohar, Bereshit A, and this is taken from Rabbi Ashlag's commentary on the Torah. Okay, and we're going to be looking at Metatron, because in order to understand why there's blindness within the tribe of Yehuda regarding the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. We have to see what's blocking their view, and what's blocking their view ultimately is Metatron. Okay, Metatron is stood there blocking their view, and they have got Metatron as a surrogate. Instead of Mashiach ben Yosef, the truth about Mashiach ben Yosef, they've got this surrogate phenomena called Metatron, who has really taken the place of the truth that of Yosef, Mashiach ben Yosef. So Mashiach ben Yosef is exiled and descended and not at full strength, and what would appear to be dead, just as Yosef was dead to his brothers in a way, and so as Yosef was dead to his father Yaakov, and this needs resurrecting. The truth is what resurrects Yosef from the dead, because he's not dead, he's truly alive. Okay, before I get myself tangled up, let's go and have a look. So we need to look at Metatron. Right, there's a lot that we need to look at, by the way. So if they repent, it is said of them, so this is taken from the Zohar, and Hashem showed him a tree, Genesis 2:25, the tree of life by which the waters are made sweet. As the deadly poison were removed from the Torah, the sweetness of it, which is the elixir of life, was revealed to them. And this tree of life is Moshe the Messiah. The soul of Moses shall be revealed at the coming of Mashiach, Messiah, as it is written of him before the coming of Mashiach. The rod of Elohim is in my hand. The rod of Elohim is Metatron, who has life on one side and death on the other. As he changes from a serpent to a rod and from a rod to a serpent, when he changed into a rod, he was helpful to Moses from the side of good, and life issued from him. So that's supposed to be from him, sorry. But when he changed into a serpent, he worked against him because death was on his side. So immediately Moses fled from it. So we all know the story in Exodus 17:9, where the rod of Moses, the rod of Elohim, changes from a serpent, and Moses runs away from it, and then he gets told to go back and pick it up. Okay, and this is also a sign used to redeem the children of Israel from Egypt. But the slight changes in the words from the rod, it becomes then the rod of Aaron that is used before Pharaoh and Pharaoh's court in Egypt. Okay, but I'm not going to go into that today. Well, this concept is something that I have actually experienced, this rod of Elohim. When I've been looking at Metatron, the reason I haven't been able to put a teaching together as often as I would have liked is because the concept of Metatron is always changing. You know, when you're studying it, it's an absolute phenomena. I'm studying Metatron, and it's the only thing that I've been studying of late where I have struggled to stay clung to the name Yod He Vav He. It really has been like the revolving sword. You know, it's something that's constantly changing and constantly flickering, and you think you've just drawn your bow and arrow to bring this. You've got this concept right in sight, and you're just about to draw your arrow and bring down this concept. You know, you feel like you've got your eyes on target, and then all of a sudden it just changes. You're trying to track it down constantly, and honestly, I would have said it's a shapeshifter for sure. Not that I believe in, or not that I necessarily believe in all this concept of shape shifting, but when it comes to Metatron, he's constantly shifting shape. Even when you're studying, it's very difficult, and by shifting shape, it's very difficult to maintain the clinging to the name Yod He Vav He. He somehow manages to. You're looking at you're looking at the different aspects of Metatron, because it's a vast concept. We will touch on that. It's a vast concept. It's unbelievable. But every time you look at it in one direction, you really do feel like you've got it in your sights, and then suddenly it's changed to something else. So it's been very difficult to get all these different elements together in order to produce a teaching that actually does something that I would have intended and desired for it to do, that I've got it in my sight, and I've actually managed to hit the target before it's changed again. So I'm really quite pleased that I've actually been able to get to that place, because it's nearly exasperating It's been nearly exasperating. It's a total joy, don't get me wrong, and like the thrill of the chase, it's like what hunting really should be like. Never mind Esau killing his, deers and whatever he was enjoying killing. But when it comes down to hunting, this concept, there's a real sport to it. And it's a really exciting, joyous thing. Don't get me wrong, but it's also very exhausting because you really don't. You end up thinking, will I actually ever be able to grasp this thing? Will I actually be able to, catch it and kill it? Yeah, that's the way that's where I was a bit. So I've been on a big hunting party, and honestly, that's how I feel. So the rod of Elohim that changed into the serpent and then back into the rod and stuff like that, I have absolutely experienced that shape-shifting aspect of Metatron when you're trying to hunt him down and figure out exactly what are you, what are you and what do you do, and but like I say, it's all part of the joy of serving Yod Heh Vav Heh and learning and drawing closer to his name. Ultimately, once you do reach that place of revelation, you start to feel illuminated and you start to feel like you have grasped these concepts to the degree that you feel like, to the degree that you desired, then it's all a good feeling and it's all part of the growing process. I certainly feel like I've grown in this journey of trying to figure out just exactly what this is. And look at the language that you're dealing with. It's complex. It's not straightforward. It's taken massive amounts of analysis, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. All these things like the rod of Elohim. I've had to do true analyses of these, to figure out, well, what is this then? Can I get a better understanding of this? And that takes time. Right, so let's go and have a little bit further, a little bit more confusion for us to sort out in the end. The Holy One, blessed be He, delivered Metatron into the hands of Moses so that he might use him by the secret of the rod of Elohim. As long as it is in the hands of Moses, it becomes a rod and not a serpent. Metatron is the secret of the oral Torah, which prescribes what is forbidden and what is permitted, namely the sides of good and evil. This is similar to Metatron, who is the secret of the Torah of Briah. But in Atziluth it is written, nor shall evil dwell with you, and the entire Torah consists of the holy names of the Holy One, blessed be He. As soon as Moses smote the rock with a rod, the Holy One, blessed be He, removed it from Moses' hand, as it is written, went down to him with a staff, that's from 2 Shmuel or 2 Samuel 23:21, to smite him with it. The staff is the evil inclination, the serpent, and everything. All the troubles in exile are because of the serpent, and everything. All the troubles in exile are because of the serpent. In other words, the serpent is the cause of all the suffering and punishment of exile. I think I've repeated a little bit of that. Basically, the capitals, caps lock, writing is commentary from Rabbi Ashlag, who's called the Master of the Ladder, Baal HaSulam. Okay, it's reference to the Ladder of Jacob. Okay, so this is highly complex writing. It's not easy to discern even from this what is being said here. What I really want people to understand just from what's written here is this, what I've just told you. It's almost like this concept is constantly changing. Yod Heh Vav Heh changes not. This is the difference. And this is the difference between the tree of life and having that revolving sword in front of it, and the cherubim, the revolving blade, and not being able to then get access to the tree of life. It's basically it's this phenomena. This is what Metatron is. This phenomena that stops us from being able to cling to the name Yod Heh Vav Heh that changes not. Why? Because it's a constant change, and it's getting beyond that constantly changing phenomena that appears very, very vast, a vast concept. You'll see the concept is so vast that most people who are worshipping God in this world today will actually be in some way worshipping Metatron and not actually knowing, because their perception of Yod Heh Vav Heh is a constantly changing perception. Well, if we do this, he'll like us, and if we do this, he'll punish us, and that is their concept of Yod Heh Vav Heh, and it's not Yod Heh Vav Heh. But you will hear people, when they talk about God and their experience of God, well, He's blessed us here and we have found favour. And then in the next minute, woe me, what have I done so wrong? And this phenomenon, this experience of who they think they're experiencing as God, they are not experiencing God. They're not experiencing Yod Heh Vav Heh. He changes not. He's always good. He's always good. He is always kind, always truthful, always forgiving of sin, always gracious, always merciful. Okay, he changes not, ever. He is always good. Okay, so if your version of God is one that changes with the weather, it's possibly Metatron that you have within your consciousness. What you are conscious of in terms of God is possibly Metatron. What's called Metatron in Judaism, it's within Christianity, the word that would be used is the prince of the world. The prince of the world, it's one of the same thing. Okay, so Metatron, like I say, has got two sides to it. Like the angel of God is one side, and Samael, the devil, the Satan, is his other side, the serpent. So you've just got to be careful, to be very aware what it is you're actually worshipping and what it is you're actually perceiving to be Yod Heh Vav Heh. It may not be. That's how important this subject is. And that's how we've all been deceived by the illusion, but we've all got to transcend in a way, or overwhelm, or we've got to dominate over this tendency to see Yod Heh Vav Heh as this ever-changing reality, because that's not the truth, it's a lie. And that comes straight from this phenomena here, the serpent. And we've got to be careful not to fall prey to that. Right, let's go and have a look at these are my writings. Okay, so in red or blue usually means my writings, my own personal writings. So this is my own comment. The serpent is Metatron, the secret of the oral Torah, the Torah of Moshe, has descended into this and is disguised by the Aggadic tales that conceal the truth regarding Mashiach ben Yosef and the Messiah, Moses. Moshe is in exile and his Torah is in exile. Okay, so Metatronic influence is basically probably as a result of Erev Rav domination within Judaism. Okay, it's like this ever-changing reality of Yod Heh Vav Heh, this ever-changing consciousness of perception of Yod Heh Vav Heh. We're so used to it because even the written Torah is it one day, if you do this you will find favour, if you do this you won't. And I mean the horrendous curses and everything like that, we'll get to a bit about the poison next, that needs to be removed. It's no wonder it presents this ever-changing consciousness or perception of Yod Heh Vav Heh, but that is not the truth. That's not the tree of life. Like I say, he changes not. He changes not. He is his name. And what is his name? The 13 attributes of mercy. The 13 attributes of mercy as it revealed to Moshe, and the inner dimension of his name is the 13 attributes of mercy as revealed to Yeshua, that's written in Micah 7. Okay, the higher level of mercy. Okay, let's move on. Right, so this is another aspect connected to what we've just gone on about, in a way. So this is also the Zohar, Bereshit, heir. And the context of this is idolatry, bloodshed, and sexual immorality. Okay, so 720 is paragraph 722 from Bereshit, heir, that's Bereshit book heir. For this reason, the Holy One, blessed be He, said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helpmate to match him." Bereshit 22:18. This is the Mishnah, second to the Queen. Okay, I am going to show how later on. I want to point this out to you now. This is the Mishnah. Okay, so it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helpmate to match him. This is the Mishnah, the helpmate to match him, second to the queen, the wife of that youth, namely Metatron. So Metatron's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Okay, and he has a wife, the Mishnah. Okay, the Mishnah is, the oral Torah to a large degree. That's what the Mishnah is. It is not good for man to be alone in the Torah of Atziluth. So I will make him a helpmate to match him by the Torah of Bria, who is the wife of Metatron, and she is not the aspect of Malkuth, the queen, but indeed she is called Mishnah Torah, being second to the Torah of Atziluth, which is the queen. She is the maidservant of the Shekinah, because sometimes she helps the queen and at other times she is matched against her. If Yisrael is meritorious, then she helps them while in exile from the aspect of the permissible, the pure, the kosher in Torah. But if not, she is a match, misneged, opposite, against the Shekinah. Torah of Moshiach, they're my words, Torah of Moshiach, the inner dimension of the Torah. The name of Yod Heh Vav, the inner dimension of the name Yod Heh Vav, the 13 attributes of mercy as revealed at the level of Keter. Okay, and this is what Shekinah is. Okay, so this is what Shekinah is. So the inner dimension of the Torah is the queen, which is ultimately a revelation that Order Yosef Chai. It's ultimately a revelation of Mashiach ben Yosef, and I'll get to that. Why? Because it's the esoteric teachings, the Kabbalistic teachings, and they are what are really truly the Shekinah. Okay, so they're what are really the Shekinah, and the queen, I should say, and the Mishnah, the oral Torah, is really the handmaid who is in place of the queen at this time. Okay, so from the aspect of the impure and the forbidden in the Torah, so the handmaid is against the queen from the aspect of the impure and the unfit and the forbidden in the Torah when Yisrael is not meritorious enough. And then the sections of the Torah that deal with the pure, permitted and kosher are related to the good inclination, while the sections of the Torah that deal with what is unfit, impure and forbidden are related to the evil inclination. So had there not been an evil inclination in the world, these sections would not have appeared in the Torah. Okay, so our evil inclination is likened to the serpent. Our own evil inclination, it's the same, it's one concept. Evil inclination, Satan, Samael, the serpent, fantasy fiction, as opposed to the truth, that Yosef Chai, and whatever we've got in place to maintain that illusion, delusion, and a lie, okay, and folly and emptiness. Right, let's have a look at this. So this is the next bit coming from what I've just said. This is the next paragraph on that's going to give us a little bit more and of an idea of what I just said. Because all this language is written in the Zohar. It's called the language of the branches. It's not straightforward language. It needs decoding. Right, the woman who had both pure blood and impure blood of menstruation comes from the aspect of Mishnah, which is imposed upon him. Thus she is not the spouse, his union, because there can be no union before the mixed multitude is eliminated from the world. Because of the mixed multitude, Moshe was buried outside the Holy Land. Bearing in mind Moshe is the Mashiach. His burial was at the hands of the Mishnah, and no one knows the location of his grave to this day. Burial means concealment, whereas the resurrection of the dead is revelation. So Moshe was concealed and buried outside the land because of the dominion of the Mishnah in the world. This is why no one can know his burial site until the day of the end of the correction. At the resurrection of the dead, Moshe will be revealed together with the two Mashiachim, the Messiahs. He is buried. The concealing of the soul of Moses comes from the power of the Mishnah, which rules over the queen, who is called the Kabbalah tradition Moshe received. So this is the esoteric teachings. So this is like when you've got all the do's and don'ts of Judaism that take precedent. The traditions of men rule over the inner teaching of the Torah, which is that Od Yosef Chai. Yosef is still alive. It's the whole concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. So what's there instead? Let's go see what's there instead. So we should have this revelation of Mashiach ben Yosef, and in that light we see the light of the name Yod He Vav He very clearly. Okay, and that's what we ultimately supposed to have. And we have that unchanging access to the tree of life through Yosef, Mashiach ben Yosef. We have got an opportunity to attach to the light of Yod He Vav He. That changes not. But when we haven't got that, when we haven't got the truth, the esoteric inner meaning of the Torah, which is Moshiach ben Yosef, and I will show a slide to show that from what the Vilna Gaon said, when we haven't got that, we've got something there instead. And it's the Mishnah, it's the don't do this, do this, don't do this, do this. If they're doing this, they're no good, keep away from them. And it's all the the permitted and the unpermitted. And that's what dominates. That's what rules at this time within Judaism. Okay? And so the queen departs from her husband. The true queen, the inner meaning of the Torah departs from her husband, which is the name Yod He Vav He, the Torah of Atziluth. And then you've got something there instead. You haven't got this high level union where the queen is with her husband. So the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, really that's what we're talking about. The concept of Mashiach ben Yosef and the concept of Moshe and the concept of Mashiach ben David, it's all one. Okay? When you haven't got that, you've got something else. And then you've got the Mishnah, and then you've no union between the king and the queen. Okay, you've no union between the king and the queen. The king is Yod He Vav He, the Torah of Atziluth. And then you've no true union with him, with the inner dimension of the Torah. That's the way that I look at it anyway. That's my interpretation. And this union really comes through a revelation of Od Yosef Chai. Okay? Yosef is still alive. It's to do with the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. But if you haven't got the truth regarding Mashiach ben Yosef, then you have got somebody there instead. And that instead bit is Metatron. The ever-changing, the serpent, the shapeshifter, the rod. In one day is a rod, and next day is a serpent. It's the revolving sword. You can't quite get access to the unchanging consciousness of the name Yod He Vav He. You've got something there instead, this ever-changing, revolving sword, preventing access to that. Because you haven't got the truth, you've got something there instead. What's that something there instead? The tree of knowledge of good and evil. The Mishnah, this is good, this is not good. Judgment, poison. That's what you've got there instead. You've not got the freedom. So let's go and look. And so the queen departs from her husband. You've not got that true unity between the king and the queen. I'm presuming her husband is Yod He Vav He. The Torah is Yod He Vav He. Okay. And she is his name. Yod He Vav He and his name are one. Okay, so the queen reveals his name. And his name is very much linked to the concept of the Mashiach, because the Mashiach is his name incarnate, if you like. Or, blessed is he who comes in his name. Okay, which is the words of Yeshua. He says, you won't see him again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of Yod He Vav He. This is why the scripture says, for 3 things the earth is disquieted. That's from Mishle 30:21. In English that would be Proverbs. Alluding to Malkuth, the female principle of Zerampin called the earth. Okay? Again, related to the queen. For 3 things the earth is disquieted, and this is the queen that we're talking about here. Malkuth, female principle of Zerampin, what's called the Nukva. Okay, and we'll come across the phrase Nukva later in the teachings when we go through the actual grammatia. The phrase for a slave when he becomes a king. Ibid 22. So this is from Proverbs 30:22. This is one of the things where the queen becomes disquieted. Okay, she loses her power or departs from her husband. This alludes to the specific servant who is Metatron. So, Metatron's a slave. He's a servant. He's a slave that becomes the king. He is there instead of the tree of life. He is this servant that's there instead. And most people defer to this slave as the king. Because why? Because they've usurped the queen, which is Moshiach ben Yosef, a revelation of Moshiach ben Yosef, and the unity of all the Mashiachim, Moshiach ben David and Moshe together as one, the bird of redemption, the Holy Shekinah, the Ruach HaKodesh, Malkuth. Okay, that's gone because they're not willing to accept that Yosef is still alive. They're not willing to accept the truth. So that departs. The Mishnah's there instead. And then, just like, it's like, this is an inspiration I thought of. You know, the brothers sold Yosef into slavery. And by doing so, they denied the truth that was owed to Yosef. They denied the truth that was owed to Yosef. You know, they you know, he had the vision that they as the stars would bow to him, and the sun and the moon, and also their sheaves binding in the field, their sheaves would bow to him. We will come across the concept of sheaves. This is the prophecy, this is the dream of Yosef, and this is why they ended up killing him in jealousy and hatred. There must have been something very unrefined about Yosef, because the brothers were righteous. So there's obviously something unrefined about Yosef that needed to go through the experience of exile in order to refine him, to bring him to a place, even although it being in a very disguised way, for the brothers to eventually bow to him. Okay, so there must have been something very unrefined about them both, basically, both the brothers and Yosef, and they had to go through this period of correction. But they sold him into slavery and ended up with a slave themselves as the king. They should have been bound to Yosef. Mashiach ben Yosef is Moshe, and he will be Mashiach ben David. But this was intolerable to them. They couldn't, so they sold him into slavery, like just as they got Yeshua killed. But then they become slaves themselves. Slaves to what? Slaves to Mishnah. Because they haven't got the truth about Od Yosef Chai, so they've no other choice. They've got no choice but to take on as their king the slave, who is Metatron, ever-changing. It's not even true consciousness of the tree of life, Yod Heh Vav Heh. It's an ever-changing fortunes, and it's you know, one day it's a rod of Elohim, next day it's biting you, full of poison, venom, you know. And it's the same Torah. It's just that when you're in exile under a slave, if you've got a slave as a king, he'll expect you to be a slave like him, because he's not got king mentality. He doesn't have Mashiach mentality. We've got Metatronic mentality. You'll just do as you're told. Well, if I've got to do this, I'll put this shoe on first, and then this shoe, and if I'm right-handed, I put my sleeve in this way, and then I put my left hand in second, and it goes on and on. The way you wipe your bottom, the everything is controlled, you know, everything, and it's just like a slave. And if you don't do these, you're somehow not acceptable and not holy and not good, and you're sinning, so you can't get near to the name Yod Heh Vav Heh, and Yod Heh Vav Heh is. This is you are a slave. You are serving a slave. This is not a king. How can you? Why would you be doing this if you was the children of the king? Bat Melech, Ben Melech, son of a king. This is not because you've got a king and a queen there. This is because you've got a slave and a handmaid. This is servant mentality. This is not serving Yod Heh Vav Heh. This is serving a slave that's pretending to be Yod Heh Vav Heh. This is true delusion. And this is what most people are like. They haven't got the soul of a king because they're not serving a king. They sold Yosef into slavery and ended up the greatest set of slaves possible. They're absolutely enslaved to who they perceive Yod Heh Vav Heh to be. But it's nothing more than a consciousness of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Nothing more than the tree. It's an ever-evolving sword. It's an ever-evolving sword, and you do not have, once you are clung to that, you definitely do not have access to the unchanging truth of Yod Heh Vav Heh, the tree of life, unchanging. You know, and you don't have, you're not serving the king, you're serving the slave, so you have to serve a slave like a slave. You have to serve a handmaiden like a handmaiden, not like a queen. So there's a different type of mentality. There's Metatronic mentality and Moshiach mentality. You've got to be able to know the difference, because you will be forever serving the slave, if not. And you've got to decide in yourself that I at least don't want to do this. That doesn't mean to say you abandon all the aspects of Torah, because the Torah, it's like Metatron is called the angel of the Lord, so there's an aspect to him, the angel of the Lord. And it says that my name, obey him, because my name is within him. Okay? So there is an aspect to this present Metatronic way consciousness that does actually reveal the name Yod He Vav He, but we have, like I say, it's very difficult to get to that. It's very difficult to get to that. The way that you've to wrestle, you've got to work very hard. Like I say, it's been a bit of a journey for me, and I'm not at the end of my journey, but I'm at a better place than when I started. Anyway, I don't want to just talk about myself. So this for the slave, when he becomes king, this all interrupts the relationship between the queen and the husband, Moshiach and Yod He Vav He. His name, Yod He Vav He, and his name. Okay, there's different ways of saying the same thing. Heaven and earth. Okay, so for a slave, when he becomes a king, so we've gone through that bit, alludes to the specific servant who is Metatron, and a handmaid that is heir to a mistress. So the handmaid is where the queen should be, taking precedence. So like I say, if it's a handmaid, which is another slave, a servant, and if you put them in the place of a queen, you're going to be, that is all, it's just one slave to another. You're under the dominion of a slave. And they're going to have you acting like a slave. You've got to think, is that what you want to serve? This ever-changing rod of Elohim and then the serpent that bites you? Is that it? And if you recognise within yourself, the least that you can do is say, I definitely desire to serve only Yod He Vav He and nothing else beside him. And I desire to serve a king, not a slave. I don't want to be subject to the slave mentality. I want to be a king, a son of, children of the king, in the king's household with the queen. This is the right order. This is all wrong. This is our work to transform this into a revelation of the truth. We've got to look at this error, and from that get a revelation from it. We've got to transform this evil. Evil, that's what it is. It's evil that's causing exile, endless exile. Because we're not empowered. The only power we've got to overcome the evil inclination is the truth. If we haven't got the truth, we've no power to overcome it. We don't see it for what it is. It's not straightforward. It's Metatronic, isn't it? It's ever changing. Is it this? Is it that? Is it what? Is it when? It's always changing. So it's very difficult to get. To pin it down, So the handmaiden that is heir to a mistress, this is another thing that disquiets the earth. The queen alludes to the Mishnah, Metatron's wife, and a fool, when he is filled with meat, is the mixed multitude, whose members are called foolish people and unwise. So the mixed multitude dominate over the true Hebrews. The true Jews are trapped within Judaism, Orthodox Judaism. They're feeding off them. All the good that they do, these evil people are feeding off them. But they're the good and the light that is trapped in there, the true Hebrews that are trapped within that Metatronic system, because of the lies regarding Moshiach ben Yosef. It's the heir of Rav that are feeding off them, all the good that they do. Empowering the heir of Rav. These are completely evil, wicked people. They're not true Jews. And they're the ones that are in charge. They're all the Rosh Yeshivas. They're all the Dayanim, the Rabbanet. They're all in the heads of government. Well, within Israel and throughout the world. They're heads of these big organisations, the elites. The heir of Rav. There's who's in charge. That's the unfortunate situation what we're in. This is the world that we're in. We're not empowered with the truth. We're not attached. We've convinced ourselves that this slave is the king, Yod He Vav He, when he's not. We've convinced ourselves that this handmaid is the queen when she's not. And we are, as a result of that, slaves in exile, perpetually, with an ever-changing consciousness of Yod He Vav He, dependent on whether we're good or not, whether we do this or whether we don't. And our judgment is just filled with judgment and poison. Our minds are filled with judgment. It's we're judging ourselves and we're judging others constantly. We're like slaves. And who is it when you're full of judgment towards our fellow man, and especially like Jews towards Christians or Christians towards Jews and stuff like that, all we're doing is condemning one another to a sentence of exile. We're thinking like slaves, like that we're somehow better because we're more of a slave than them. Think about it. Is this what you want for your life? We've got one life here. Okay. Well, there is only life. There is really nothing else but life. There only is Yod He Vav He. But what I'm trying to get is that what advantage is one slave? You're more of a slave than me. Well done. Well done for that. What have you achieved by being more of a slave? Under a slave. That's exile. That's exile. What have you achieved? You achieved nothing. But anyway, and these mixed multitude, I've been watching a video just lately in amongst all this. And it was I wanted to point this out because this is another important observation that I've recently come across. Watching these videos about the Jewish people that abandon Orthodox Judaism, they've had nasty experiences, Erev experiences that have made them decide these people are not true Jews. This whole system stinks. They are leaving it. They are going. There's nowhere for them to go. And I watched them, extremely sensitive souls filled with light that were prepared to stand against this nonsense that had hurt their souls because something inside them was like a king. Daughters and sons of kings, they knew that this slave mentality was not for them. They was trying to break free from it, try to break free from all that influence. And some of them were just abused like you can't even imagine, thrown stones at and clothes ripped and attacked by religious people. And I'm thinking to myself, but most of them, when they managed to get free of that slave, they just fell to another slave. Because they then became almost atheist and behaved and totally abandoned the Torah. So it's one thing to think that the Mishnah is, something, where is it? The handmaid, the Mishnah, the rules are whatever it is, this, all these do's and don'ts and stuff like that. But where do you go? Where do they go? And then I thought about myself, because obviously I had to leave Christianity, and that was a bloodbath getting out of there, because you have so much fear and doubt, and you're made to feel like you've fallen from grace and stuff. But I had attachment to the name Yod He Vav He within the letter of the Torah, because I'd already started to keep Shabbat, I'd started to keep the festivals, I'd started to keep kosher. So I had some connection to the Torah within the letter of the law. There's two revelations is within the letter of the law, and there's out with the letter of the law. I'd experienced the name Yod He Vav He outside the letter of the law through the soul of Moshiach ben Yosef being awakened within me. And then I also started to experience the soul at the level of Moshe within the letter of the Torah by keeping the festivals and the Shabbat and going towards the Hebraic roots of Christianity. Okay, but then when I had to come away from that, I got the same battering, leaving. You hit the hard outer husks and it's painful. It really is painful. It would destroy you. And I thought to myself, well, how come I maintain my faith yet all these people that I saw that were born Jews, born into Orthodox environments where they'd never known anything but Torah and mitzvot their whole life long, why did they abandon faith? Why did they completely go secular? Why did they go a different way to what I experienced? And it's all to do with the name Yod Heh Vav Heh, because when I was come out of Judaism and from without and got myself free of this Erev Rav Metatronic mentality, but I obviously couldn't go back into Christianity because that was just a crock of what. And I just thought to myself, when I was looking at them, I thought they have completely abandoned the faith because they only know Yod Heh Vav Heh within that. It's when I was saying the angel of the Lord, obey him because my name is within him. But when you're caught up in that Metatronic slave mentality, and that's the only source of connection you have to Yod Heh Vav Heh, but you know that this is all evil in some way and you want to get free from it, where can you go? Because you have not got the revelation of Yod Heh Vav Heh, the higher revelation at the level of Mashiach ben Yosef. You've not got that level of Yod Heh Vav Heh at the level of Keter, which is what you get within Christianity. So I was able to maintain my faith and not float away because I had something above me. It was above a revelation of Torah. And then slowly, obviously I don't want to get entangled with Metatronic Erev Rav mentality and domination. I don't want to go towards Edomite Christian. So that's another slave, isn't it? But slave to your lower natures, slave to your greeds and your lusts instead. I don't want to go towards that. But I had something there. I still had that revelation of Yod Heh Vav Heh that existed above the Torah, that I'd gained through Yeshua. A revelation of Yeshua, a revelation of, by the time I left Judaism, I'd already re-established that connection that Yeshua was the truth. He was the Mashiach ben Yosef. Oh, okay. I didn't know fully, so it was a very much period of limbo for me. It was very, very difficult. I felt like I was totally in no man's land. I had absolutely no community whatsoever anybody could talk to. That's why I'm so motivated to do these teachings. If anybody was in the same places where I've been, God forbid, it was a dreadful, dreadful, dreadful challenge for my soul. It was a very, 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 very harsh place and lonely. I've had to entertain myself in this place of complete desert and loneliness, wandering, trying to figure it all out, feeling like I had been rejected and abandoned. But really, it's all Hashem. He says, no, this nonsense is not for you. But you don't know that at the time. You've got to go through all this breaking down till you're completely broken. You've nothing left, and you say, okay, so I'm nothing left, but I'm still going to serve you as best as I can. And then things do get better for you. Right, I hope I'm not deviating. This is because I'm wanting to show you all these things. These are journeys that I've been on when I've been trying to grasp this concept called Metatron. So that was one thing I was watching these Orthodox Jewish people that had abandoned the faith, and I realised that we need both revelations. Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David is that space between those two. Because is at the level of Chaya, which is not just the revelation that's received of the levels of Keter, and is not just the tree of the revelation of Moshe, or the written Torah that we've got now that contains harsh judgment within it. And I've pointed this out before in the Zohar. It says that the all-seeing eye of Keter, which is the level of the Torah of Mashiach ben Yosef. It's the revelation of the name Yod Heh Vav Heh above the letter of the law. It's completely and totally all merciful. There's only one eye, one good eye. It's all white. It's all filled with mercy. There is nothing but mercy. And that's got to wash clean the Torah of Moshe, which has got two eyes and it's filled with black and red. This is the language of the Zohar. So what I'm meaning by that is it's filled with judgment and death and poison. You've got to wash that clean with the revelation of the Torah that came via Yeshua, the higher level, the level of Keter. The Torah of Moshiach ben Yosef is what washes clean this the poison from the written Torah of Moshe. Okay, let's go on. Under a slave who rules and a wrench who is sated with food. So that's part of all this, what has gone on up there. That's just the actual verse from Proverbs. You know, when I said that the Kabbalah, the esoteric teachings that are to do with Moshiach ben Yosef, the secret of the entire Torah, the hidden secret of the entire Torah of Moshiach ben Yosef, because through him, through that revelation, we get the unity of the Meshachim, and the Meshachim together do the Shekinah, the Queen. You know, but it's that whole unity, Moshe, Yeshua, and ultimately Mashiach ben David. Right, so you've got this secret, Sod equals 70, which is exactly the same as the letter Ayin. The letter Ayin missing from the name of Yeshua, that when he's talked about within the Orthodox Judaism. Secret spelled out is Samech Vav Daleth, which was 566. Mashiach ben Yosef is 566. That's why, and this is from Vilna Gaon in Kol Hatar, that's why the inner dimension of the Torah is a revelation of Moshe ben Yosef. That is the light in which we see the light of Yod He Vav He revealed. That's the light where the Torah that we've got becomes the Torah of Atziluth. I would think that that's the language in Zohar that you would use. This is the Torah where the Torah becomes a revelation of the name Yod He Vav He and nothing else beside him. Okay, this revelation of an unchanging, merciful, compassionate, gracious, truthful, you know, all the 13 attributes of mercy. That's and a unity of the attributes mercy as revealed in the written Torah of Moshe, and the attributes of mercy as revealed through Yeshua Mashiach ben Yosef, united together as one. Okay. It's all glorious. It's all glorious. I hope I've hit the nail on the head with that one. Let's go and have a look at something else. So this is Metatron written in the book Kol Hatar, because I didn't want to just show you, this is the concept of Metatron from the Zohar, because not everybody, obviously you can see the language of the Zohar is not easy to interpret. I hope I've made some headway for people and clarified some stuff, but it's complex. It's complex. So in Kol Hatar chapter 1, Vilna Gaon, the Gaon merited being the light of Mashiach ben Yosef. He was the generational Mashiach ben Yosef. The Mashiach ben Yosef is generation. He was not the millennial. The actual Mashiach ben Yosef incarnated was Yeshua. In order to promote the ingathering of the exiles and to reveal the hints in the Torah regarding the footsteps of Moshe ben Yosef, he was sent down from heaven. This based on the words, the smallest will become 1,000, from Isaiah 6:22, which is one of the appellations of Moshe ben Yosef, by the way, and it talks about that in the book Kol Hatar. And his hints at 999, which is the sphere of Yesod, Yesod is Yosef, okay? And the root of the Or Elyon, light most high, at the level of the angel Metatron, who is the angel of the interior, what's called Sar Hapanim, that should be, I've spelt it wrong. It's Sar Hapanim, princes of the faces. I will correct that, but I'm not going to do it now. Right, this is taken from another book that I studied regarding Metatron. I've looked in various sources, so I just want to read these things out. So you've got sort of an idea from within Jewish rabbis or rabbinical texts that are Kabbalistic rabbinical texts. Okay, so Kol Hatar is a very Kabbalistic rabbinical text. And then this next book, Kabbalah of Adamic Messiah, this is from a rabbi called Joel David Bakst, and he talks about Metatron quite a lot in his books, and he talks about Moshe ben Yosef a lot as well. The Zohar has, so we're reading this now, the Zohar has explicit depiction of the sacred Uroboros, which I did a lesson on Uroboros. It's the one where it's got like I think it's got a picture of Pharaoh on the front with the snake on his head. Anyway, it's very interesting teaching. The motif of the serpent with the two tails in its mouth is, with a little question, the most unusual and intriguing shape in the entirety of the Torah literature. Right, I'm going to try and put a link to that video in the comments below. It's really, really interesting. Yet this symbol, virtually unknown throughout the world of the academic study of comparative religion and mysticism, as well as in Jewish Kabbalah circles, is very much the backbone behind the spectrum of Metatron, Moshe and Messiah. So he sees, this is where I want you to get the mind from a Jewish perspective. And this is why I'm pointing out, what do they see? They see Metatron, Moses and Messiah on the same spectrum. Okay, so you got Metatron, Moses and then Messiah. It's one long continuous spectrum to them. This is their point of view. Okay, and it's called the backbone. You know, the backbone is likened to a serpent. You know, that's why the Jewish people have got to bend whilst at certain locations, and it's imitating the movement of a snake. It's like a holy snake overpowering the unholy snake, if you like, through prayer, you know, bowing and bending during your prayers, especially the Amidah. You do it everybody in the synagogue will bend and bow at a certain place. You know, so the backbone is likened to a snake. So the backbone behind the spectrum of Metatron, Moshe and Messiah. So from a Jewish perspective, what I'm saying is that their backbone includes Metatron, who is the serpent, okay? I'm not saying that this phenomena doesn't exist outside of Judaism, but I just want you to get, this is a substitute for something that should be there instead. Metatron is there because the truth is not there. So on the spectrum of Moshe and Messiah, it really should be Mashiach ben Yosef, Moses, Mashiach ben David. That should be the spectrum. Because Mashiach ben Yosef is the massive system, okay, with which the entire of the Tikkun correction is there. But from a Jewish point of view, at this time, who deny the truth that Yosef's still alive, they have Metatron there instead. It should be Mashiach ben Yosef, Moses. That should be the spectrum. But it's not. And that's the complete spectrum. Mashiach ben Yosef, Moshe, Mashiach ben David. Okay, them three, the three that must unite, the bird of redemption, Moshe, the body of the bird, the left wing Mashiach ben Yosef, the right wing Mashiach ben David. What this unique ancient symbol represents, however, as unexpectedly re-emerging as generation as the cutting edge of science and consciousness. As explained below, the symbol of the two-tailed Leviathan, okay, is none other than a two-dimensional representative model of a modern three-dimensional geometric form, the torus. Okay, so I'm not going to go into what he's actually talking about now. I just wanted to point out that from a Jewish point of view, look how wrong it is. Because look what Metatron is, a slave. You know, a slave which denies you access to the unchanging light of Yod He Vav He, and who keeps you in an ever more slave mentality and ever more conscious of yourself as a slave. And there's no real unity between the king and the queen. And that's what's there. It shouldn't be there. The truth should be there. Od Yosef Chai. That's what should be there. And it's not. And I'm just showing you how they have got a substitute. It's the same within Christianity. Because they've substituted the truth about Yeshua, being a Jew, Torah observant Jew, for something other. And they're now just a slave to at least the Jewish people, they're doing Torah and mitzvah. You know, they might not have the right mentality, but they are doing good works to a certain extent. They're doing it for the wrong person. They're doing it for the slave, and with a slave mentality, which is not desirable. But what are the Christians doing? Well, debauchery, idol worship. I mean, it's they're slaves to a lower nature. This is at least slaves to a higher nature. You know, there is a difference. I hope you can appreciate. However, the good works that the Christians do are sometimes totally gracious, totally merciful, totally compassionate. So as well as being, just as you've got true Jews within Judaism, you truly have true Hebrews, truly serving the name Yod He Vav He. You have got true Christians. They're trapped in a system that is slave and exilic, Metatronic and exilic. It's not how things should be. We're not fully there yet. But I just wanted to show you so I'm not mocking the Jews saying, oh, look how blind they are, because it's really, wherever you look, this is a phenomena, and worse in a way, on the one hand, and then better in a way on another hand. The Christians who are imitating the light of Moshe ben Yosef that inspired them and brought them to life within, to be just totally merciful and totally kind without measure and totally giving and all these kinds of things, which there's people who are living at that level. They're taught for self-sacrifice. They have nothing of themselves. All they want to do is give and spread the good news and be lights in this world, and they really have attained that. They never lose that light that first brought them to life. It lives within them, and the works that they do are conforming to that revelation that they've received, which is a very high revelation, and it's wonderful. Okay, it doesn't belong to the Catholic Pope. It belongs to Yod He Vav He, that service. Just as the Jews doing all that they have done throughout all this time of exile. It doesn't belong to the Erev Rav and Metatronic mentality. It belongs to Yod He Vav He. That's who it belongs to. That light belongs to him. He and only he. Okay? But this is part of it. I mean, we have been given a work to do, and the work is not easy to discern what the truth is. This is a work. To fight against the doubts. Does that block you from understanding the truth about Od Yosef Chai, Moshe ben Yosef? This is hard work. Trying to figure out what Metatron is, hard work. It's a joy to be doing it, though. From the right perspective, with the right consciousness, it's a joy to doing it. When you know by doing it you are serving Yod He Vav He and nothing else beside, then what joy and love you have in your heart to be able to do this. Like as what I spoke of earlier. It's you've to look at the kings and queens in this world and what their children do. What their children are going out hunting. Honestly, they are. Like I look at the royal family. I mean, they've killed lions and everything. Not that I'm totally and utterly against blood sport. Other than fishing, totally and utterly. I'm not a hunter. I don't like killing animals. I don't even eat meat anymore. But this is a different kind of hunting, isn't it? They're the royal family actually going around killing tigers and elephants and stuff like that, and giraffes, and thinking that they're somehow superior human beings as a consequence. You've got Trump and his sons doing the same, haven't you? So you've got all these kings, these royalties, and the children out. When you are you're like a royal child, going out hunting and sporting against these concepts, and it just brings you joy. It's joy and love, because you've got this great privilege that you've got to be able to go and and do this, just like royal children, just like sons of the king and daughters of the king should be able to go and do. That's what we should be doing. We should be looking at what all these rich royal families are doing and just imitating them in a godly way. And that's a little bit like what I'm hopefully passing on. There is a better way. The truth is what sets you free. The truth sets you free. It sets you free from serving Metatron for nothing. With serving a slave and you've got to be ever more slavish in order to please him. Right, so this next one then, the eternal Torah ratio. Jewish philosophical thought and Judaic theology. Often the external trumpets of Torah, only as a religion, is an encounter with a single deity called God. This God, however, is an anthropological projection that is used virtually always for its allegorical meanings. In Torah-based Kabbalah, however, we have a relationship with the relationship that the Or Ein Sof has with its own self, the eternal ratio. It sounds a little bit New Agey, that, but basically it's that Obviously, we cannot possibly discern Yod He Vav He in his infinite capacity, but he has made himself known to us. Okay, so we can't perceive the Or Ein Sof, but we can perceive the Or Ein Sof. And it's like going back to that concept that I just mentioned, the name Yod He Vav He, Yod He Vav He and his name. So through his name, which is different from Yod He Vav He, he has made himself known. And his name is very much connected to the concept of Moshiach. Okay? And Metatron, you've got to fight Metatron to get to that. You've got to overwhelm this. You've got to recognise exactly the difference between the Metatronic system and the Messianic system. You've got to figure it out. That's a challenge for us. You know, it's like... I don't know whether you could call it Leviathan. I don't know whether that would be within Judaism or Kabbalah or whatever. But you know, it's like this delusion that you've got to. It's a serpent. You've got to get rid of that. You know, you want Messiah. You've got to transform the serpent into Messiah. You know, you've got to see the serpent for what it is, and recognise that that is not who you are, and not what you want. You've got to reject that and choose good, which is Yod He Vav He. Okay, you've got to get to a place where you're recognising these forces and saying, no, enough with that. I recognise I've been foolish enough to serve nothing but a slave. You know, with a slave mentality. This my version of Yod He Vav He changes hourly. You know, and recognise that can't be the truth then, because it changes not. What have I been serving? What have I been doing? This familiarity, is it the ultimate truth, or have I been totally deceived? You know, you got to wake up. Right, where did I get to? So I've just explained that then, haven't I? A bit new agey, but hopefully I managed to explain it in a little bit better way. No, this eternal relationship is also the same ratio for the lesser Yod He Vav He to the greater Yod He Vav He, the lesser name code to the greater name code, and the lesser Metatron to the greater Metatron. The eternal Torah ratio is encoded in the enigmatic verse formula, my name is within him. So that's about the angel of the Lord, in it? Obey him because my name is within him. So my is he, this rabbi has called that the greater name code. It's all linked to Metatron. It's Metatron worship. My name is within him. Metatron, lesser name code. Kabbalah of the Adamic Messiah. So, really, I mean, I've done a whole analysis on this verse, the whole verse with the angel of the Lord and everything like that. It is absolutely and utterly and truly fascinating. All of it's fascinating. The whole concept of Metatron is fascinating. It's fascinating in that you've got to see its opposite. The opposite of Messiah. The truth about Messiah, it's the opposite is Messiah consciousness. The opposite is a messianic relationship with the name Yod He Vav He, not some slave mentality. It's honestly, it's to be elevated up to be daughters of this king, sons of the king, and to act according to that. Well, you know your father's not going to crucify you or kill you or punish you at any given second. You know, you've got to be confident of your relationship to the unchanging reality of Yod He Vav He, the truth. You know, you've got to be awakened up to that. So here, I hope you can understand, from a Jewish point of view, this Metatron is really put on a big pedestal. But like I said, it's put on a pedestal because it's all the will of Yod He Vav He. It was the will of Yod He Vav He that Yosef be sold into slavery, and in doing so, the Jewish people became like slaves. Because they didn't know whether he was alive or dead, and they don't know to this day. And like I said, this is the day where he's revealed, once and for all he's revealed. It is in the Torah. This is Zot Hanukkah, and today is the second reading of Vayigash, I think it is. So it's all glorious. It's all glorious. Right, let's move on then. I hope I made myself clear regarding that. I hope you can understand, from a Jewish perspective, Metatron is Yod He Vav He. Okay? He is Yod He Vav He. Their version of Yod He Vav He. But it's like... this should be, Metatron should be Moshiach ben Yosef, which is truly his name. Okay? It's truly an aspect and a revelation of his name. And Yod He Vav He and his name are one. Okay? Right, this might sound a little bit complicated, but again, it goes on about this backbone. So it's just to point out the three angels, and just to see how entrenched within the consciousness. This is how Jewish people, this is what, when I go back, I want to see how Jewish people are blind to the truth about Moshiach ben Yosef, and this is problematic. Because as we need to get rid of that blindness for them to see, because they have got to give birth to Moshiach ben David. The Jewish people who will birth Moshiach ben David. They will reveal Moshiach ben David. So this is why we've got to help with this blindness. We will get there eventually. The three angels who visited Abraham are different because they are archangels, the source of archetypes for all of the other angels. They are the circuit providers, the trunk of the tree from which all the other angelic circuits receive their spiritual current and branch out. As is known in Kabbalah, the world of the angels is a lower dimensional replica and an outer covering for the higher dimension, the world of the 10 Sefirot. Thus, these three archangels are garments for the three foundational Sefirot, Chesed, Gvura, Tifereth. There is still yet, however, one more level up, the root of the tree trunk, the Meta-Archangel. This is Metatron, the master channel, and the backbone of the whole operation, and the direct link to the ineffable. As known, Metatron is the servant, second in command to God, and therefore is also referred to as the Lord. And then this is one of the notes. The term Metatron is literally the cosmic backbone extending from one end of the universe to the other, min ha'olam ve'ad olam, holding up the entire body of creation. Metatron is sometimes called God, Lord, and Almighty, and even less Yod He Vav He, the lesser. See also Sefer Halikutim ad locum of the Arizal, where the word in our text, Eved, your servant, is identified as Metatron. So this is the passage that he's talking about in Genesis. And he said, my lords, if only I've found favour in your eyes, please do not pass on from beside your servant. So according to Arizal, your servant, which you would have thought it was Abraham, according to Arizal, your servant is Metatron. Okay. So again, it's clear from here that the whole backbone, cosmic backbone, is Metatron. But it's not. It's not Metatron, it's Moshiach ben Yosef. But they are unaware that he's still alive. So they're seeing the backside of Moshiach ben Yosef, or some kind of Sitra Achra. The other side of Moshiach ben Yosef must be Metatron. Because this from our eyes is something other. I hope you can understand. This is from Jewish point of view. They're just looking at looking at creation and everything from the eyes of Yehuda, and they're seeing Metatron. We're seeing Yosef, Moshiach ben Yosef. We're seeing him from the front, they're seeing him from the back. So from our perspective, this is something other than Yod He Vav He. It's not the truth. It's not the truth. That's why you get even Christians repulsed by what Jews believe, utterly and absolutely repulsed. But it's no wonder, because they're calling something that they've experienced as the truth. Their word for that is Metatron, but it's not Metatron. The true reality is Yosef is still alive. So the Christians on that one have got it all right. Unfortunately, their experience of Moshiach ben Yosef has descended into exile. So you've got the same problem there. They've experienced Moshiach ben Yosef, but they don't see what they experience either. They clothe that up in garments of filthy idol worship. So even though they've experienced it, and even though they've perceived it at one level, at another level, they're blind. Because they see Jesus hung on a cross and, Pope dressed up and all these big pagan festivals occur within, it's not the truth either. Okay, so you've got to divest. On the one eye, you've got to divest. You've got to take the one eye that the Jews have got right and the one eye that the Christians have got right and bring them two together and get rid of the blindness that's stopping you from perceiving reality with any sense of dignity or truth. Okay, don't want to wander off too far. Let's have a look what else there is. Okay, why am I going through this now? So who was Abraham addressing? From a Kabbalah perspective, the word Adonai, this is me trying to build up from what is it the Jews are seeing and what's in their way from seeing the truth. Okay, this is why I'm going over and over and over it, because I want this blindness to be removed out of love and because of the sake of Mashiach to come. Because even though I feel very close to the revelation of Mashiach ben Yosef, I know that my Jewish brothers and, I really truly do believe my Jewish brothers have got the capacity to bring into revelation for the whole of humanity that revelation of Mashiach ben David. They've got the capacity to give birth to that once they see the truth regarding Moshe ben Yosef, and once they've got the unity between Moshe and Moshe ben Yosef, then they have got the power, and we join with them. We've got the power to give birth to the Mashiach, the generational Mashiach ben David, the final incarnation of Mashiach ben David, the one that will bring world peace. Right, so this is why I'm going over and over it, and this is why I'm trying to drive it home. So who was Abraham addressing from a Kabbalah perspective? The word Adonai, pronounced either Adonai or Adonai, is multidimensional. It is singular and plural, both secular references and the name of God, sacred name. Abraham is effecting cosmological restoration and unification with each aspect of Adonai. The singular, my Lord, is the leader of the group, and Abraham is effecting a tikkun, which means a correction in the central column of the Merkava, which means a chariot, like a chariot for the divine. Okay, and all the patriarchs, Abraham, Yitzhak and Yaakov, part of that Merkava, part of that chariot. Okay, the archetypal root of the sphere. The plural, my Lord, refers to the three angelic energies, and Abraham is effecting a tikkun, a correction, in the collective body of the Merkava, which is the chariot, the holy chariot. Chesed, Gevurah and Tifereth. So these are three aspects of the tree of life. The third tikkun is with the master channel, referred to as the Lord. And who is the Lord? So this is referred to as Adonai, as in the sacred name. And who is the Lord? Certainly it refers to God, but there is also another phenomenon called Lord. This is Metatron, the Prince of the Universe. That's Shah HaOlam, by the way. And it translates as Prince of the World. That's who Metatron is, the Prince of the World. Okay, so it's capacity to deceive everybody. And he does. The servant of God, who is called by the name of his master, because he comes in the guise of he comes in the guise of Yotevave. And most people, when they're talking to God or experiencing God, are actually experiencing Metatron, the angel Metatron. As is well known in rabbinical literature, this is because the supernal nature of Metatron is so encompassing and transcendent that he is also called a Lord. The Shekinah, the temporal, this is where I was going, the Shekinah, the temporal special manifestation of divinity, is actually the feminine aspect of Metatron. This is Adonai, Malkut feminine, that Abraham called upon in order to reconstruct a bridge between the higher and lower worlds. Okay, right, but we've just read that Shekinah is the queen and she is not his wife. She is the wife of Yotevave. Metatron is instead. So there's a bit of obscurity going. He's either trying to say something, but when you read it, we've just read the Zohar, which says his wife is the Mishnah, not the Shekinah, and the Shekinah is his wife is the queen, which represents the inner revelation of the Torah, which represents Mashiach ben Yosef. So I hope you can understand there is some conflict, isn't there? It's no wonder we're getting it wrong. Because it's almost this Metatronic mentality, it's Metatronic slavery. You know, the slave has become the king. You know, the handmaid has become the queen. You know, especially when they're calling the queen who is his wife, is not the queen, and they're saying he is married to the Shekinah. Oh, you can see where I'm coming from. Now, maybe this rabbi made a mistake, and maybe this is kind of like the Shekinah of the other side, or something like that. I don't know, but anyway, it's not the truth. It's not the truth. It's what is there when the truth is missing. The truth that Od Yosef Chai, when Od Yosef Chai, the truth about Yosef is missing, and the truth that Yosef is alive is missing. We're in a state where Yosef is dead. Yosef is in a state of death. It's not functioning fully or correctly, and this guy's in instead. This guy is the substitute or surrogate Yesod. He's a surrogate Mashiach ben Yosef, but he's a slave, not a king. Yosef's a king. Okay, we should be bowing down to Yosef, but that was too disagreeable to us, so now we're bowing down to a slave instead, dressed up as Yod He Vav He, just as Yosef had to dress up as Pharaoh. It's all incredibly revealing, really, and no wonder no wonder we've been so deluded and deceived, and no wonder we haven't been able to get out of exile, because it is quite a complicated subject, and I hope you can appreciate it's not easy to pin it down. It's not easy to figure it out. So this is what I've put, and then the teaching will proceed from here with the actual gematria that will back up exactly the things that I've been saying in a way that I hope will help the eyes of the blind to see, because that's what we want to achieve. Because when the blind ones see, and I'm specifically talking about the blindness within Yehuda that cannot accept that Yeshua is Mashiach ben Yosef, or they cannot understand this problem, this situation that we're in, is because Yosef is perceived as being dead when he's not. He's truly alive. And once we have got attached to that truth, we can see ushering that messianic reign of King David. Okay, so let me read in blue. These are my words. From a Jewish perspective, through the eyes of Yehuda, they sold Joseph to slavery, but in doing so made themselves slaves. I already talked about that. Metatron is the master and the Shekinah his wife. Right, this is what we've just read here, and I've just put in brackets. The reality is, this is the tree of knowledge, Metatronic perspective, where the wife is not truly the queen. The wife of Metatron is actually a mission of the second Torah that has usurped the queen, which is the inner Torah, the revelation that Od Yosef Chai, Mashiach ben Yosef, or it's an external aspect of the Torah devoid of its true inner meaning, just as they took the coat of Yosef and tore it and dipped it in goat's blood. Right, that's a little bit, I don't know whether I've complicated that up, but I hope you follow with what I've said. Whatever they've done that was good, they've turned into something bad because they couldn't bow to Yosef. Maybe they have to go to that, they have to go through a correction. Okay, because if they really truly knew what a King Yosef was, they would bow. If they knew to who they was bowing, they would bow. Because really, Yosef is the name of Yod He Vav He incarnate. It's a phenomenal revelation. It's not just a small pocket version. Nobody can really bow to that. But the truth about Mashiach ben Yosef, you would bow. You would bow to this. He's a true king, and what is accomplished through this exile is phenomenal. Because all the time when we think he's dead, he's not. He's been gathering the likes of me up, and functioning, albeit in disguise. But he's been doing a glorious thing during this entire exile for all the sake of humanity. So, I'm not going to go over that again. This quote represents the inner Torah and the works that stem from this, imitation of the name Yod He Vav He. That's my words. It's just an inspiration. I'm just going to stick for it with this time, but I hope you understand. These are my words. These are my thoughts. These are my musings, if you like, what I've been able to sort of perceive in all this analysis of Metatron. So, where did I get to? When Yehuda opens his eyes to the truth, then from him will come forth Mashiach ben David. For truly, they have got the capacity. because they're pure, and they have been, even though it's Metatron that they've been serving, truly in the hearts they want to serve Yod Heh Vav Heh. That's for sure, 100%. But without the truth about Od Yosef Chai, they are unable to. They are stuck serving Metatron to a certain degree. But I know in their hearts they desire to serve Yod Heh Vav Heh, nothing else beside him. Okay, and from that, and because of that, that will give forth, when they see the Od Yosef Chai, this will birth Mashiach ben Yosef for sure, Mashiach ben David for sure. From a messianic perspective, through the eyes of Yosef, reality is totally different. We are aware of Od Yosef Chai, then Yesod is Mashiach ben Yosef. Yeshua, who was Moshe, and the Shekinah is the queen, the inner revelation of the Torah. So we've just got a slightly different perspective, but like I say, people who have come from within Christianity or identify as the lost tribes of Israel have got their own set of exilic problems that prevent us from seeing. So we've got our own blindness, and we need to be aware of that. Right, let's see. I think I'm just going to go put that up. That's the story of Abraham with the angels that we've just been talking about. If you want to pause and read it, please do. And then finally, this is the final thing. It's called Beyond Kabbalah, the teachings that cannot be taught. I have written about Moshe. This is all from this particular Rabbi Joel David Bakst. Okay, I have written about Mashiach ben Yosef at length in The Secret Doctrine of the Gaon of Vilna. Brilliant book. But the following can be used as a rule of thumb. Mashiach ben Yosef manifests on 3 levels. Let's look how wrong this is. By the way, I'm just going to point out, this is how it's seen from the eyes of Judah, and this is how wrong it is. Mashiach ben Yosef is a meta-archetype, an all-encompassing collective consciousness that networks a vast matrix, it's supposed to be matrix that, of smaller and distinct yet interdependent archetypal processes. These can remain on their collective root level, and or they can also manifest in the form of 2 and 3 below. An archetype in Torah literature can also be known as an archangel, such as Michael, Gabriel and Raphael. In this case, however, Moshiach ben Yosef is the meta-archangel known throughout Talmud, including the standard commentaries of Rashi and Tosafot, Midrash and Zohar, as Metatron. No. No, not exactly. You're looking at him from the back. Face to face, he does not look much like Metatron. Face to face, through him, you see the light of Yod Heh Vav Heh and nothing else beside him. Okay, but from a back-to-back perspective, it may well look like Metatron, and that's why you've got the substitute. It's not really Metatron. Okay, it's because you don't have the truth. So you've got him instead. So there's conflict there, isn't there? Mashiach ben Yosef is not Metatron. They're not one and the same thing. They're definitely absolutely not. From my perspective, when I've studied about Metatron, it's definitely and absolutely not Mashiach ben Yosef. It's a backside of him, or like the other side of him, the equal. It's something that's through the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, we see clearly the light of the name Yod Heh Vav Heh. We see that the unchangingness of Yod Heh Vav Heh. We see his utter and absolute perfection. We see his echad, his total and utter oneness, through this concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, united with Moshe, and with the hope of the revelation of Mashiach ben David. Through that, we see the light of Yod Heh Vav Heh. Through Metatron, we just see the revolving sword and the ever-changing nature of Yod Heh Vav Heh, which is a lie. It's a lie. Okay, so I'm in conflict with this, because this is not how I see it. This is how Yehuda sees it, because they have not got the truth regarding Yeshua. Simple as that. So again, point 2 then. Mashiach ben Yosef is an actual individual who exists in each and every generation. This is the deeper meaning of the verse. The Zaddik is the foundation, channel, Yesod of the world. That's from Proverbs 10:25. Okay, major flaw here as well. Major flaw, because there's always a generational Moshiach ben Yosef, as there is always a generational Moshiach ben David, probably. I know Baal Shem Tov was probably a generational Moshiach ben David, despite him not fully emerging yet, incarnate. Moshe, there's a generation of the Moshe. There's a generation, Moshe of the generation, but there was a true incarnation of actual Moshe. The entire incarnation of him, not any burr, not an impregnation, which is equivalent to the generational one, where you're getting help. Like I have got an impregnation of the soul of Moshiach ben Yosef, but I am not a full incarnation of the soul of Moshiach ben Yosef. I have just got a spark within me that I am aware of. It's alive within me. Okay, but I am not Moshiach ben Yosef because he came 2,000 years ago almost. Right? So here they've got Moshiach ben Yosef is an actual individual existing in each and every generation. What's missing from there? The millennial. The actual incarnation, not the generational one. Moshe actually came and actually incarnated. Then each generation we get an impregnation of his soul. Okay? And within each and every Jew there's a spark of Moshe there that's sometimes very alive and sometimes not. Okay, sometimes deeply buried. Right? In a place nobody knows. But what's missing from there is that but Yeshua, who was the actual incarnation of Mashiach ben David, the full incarnation of his soul, the Gilgal, what's called the Gilgal, a full incarnation of his soul, which is the same soul as Moshe. It's the soul of Mashiach. It was the same soul as Moshe, except at a higher level. Moshe came at the level of Neshama. Yeshua came at the level of Mashiach ben Yosef, the Yechida, because he had to be sacrificed for the sake of what needed to be done, to gather in the lost tribes of Israel in a very hidden way, which is what has been accomplished. So, that bit wrong as well. But this is from a Jewish point of view, because they don't acknowledge that Yeshua was Mashiach ben Yosef. So they've got that gap missing out there. There's no millennial version of Mashiach ben David within Judaism. Yet, from our point of view, there is the millennial version. Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay, Yeshua ben Yosef is any collective group, men or women, who are involved in the specific activities of Mashiach ben Yosef, returning to the land of Israel, including its expansion and rebuilding, learning and dissemination of the Torah, and for the Torah scholar, mastery of the Kabbalah and scientific knowledge. Okay, so there's things missing there as well, because one, the activity of involving returning to the land of Israel doesn't include the lost house of Yosef for the most part. They're just forgotten about. Okay, forgotten, totally forgotten. This is Israel as they perceive Israel to be, and only a limited perspective from the eyes of through the eyes of Yehuda, which is basically limited to who Yehuda perceives as a Jew. And it certainly doesn't include those of the lost house of Israel that have been awakened by the soul of Mashiach ben Yosef within Christianity. It doesn't include those. They are not part of their vision, okay? They're part of Yod-Heh-Vav's vision. So that's another delusion. So, yes, there's a lot of truth in that, but also it's a partial truth, isn't it? There's a blindness there as well. So, no, this aspect of oversoul of Mashiach ben Yosef is also known in the Zohar and in the writings of Rizal as the Zihara Illa'ah, a supernal radiance of the soul of Adam. Okay, so we're talking about Mashiach ben Yosef is massive. We know that. He is we know that when we've experienced Mashiach ben Yosef, you experience that vastness, don't you? You experience that he is the name Yod-Heh-Vav. I've talked about this a lot. I don't want it to get caught up in the debate. I'm not saying that Mashiach ben Yosef is the infiniteness of the Ein Sof Yod-Heh-Vav, but he is the absolute vastness through which, the limit of the vastness through which we would be able to perceive the name Yod-Heh-Vav. Okay, so this is the way the name Yod-Heh-Vav, this is the way Yod-Heh-Vav has made himself known to us in the most vast and complete way possible. And it's through Moshiach ben Yosef. And when we get a full revelation of Moshiach ben Yosef in truth, and he's fully alive, we will know that there's that he represents his name. You know, he represents his name. He represents the extent to which we are able to understand the absolute authority and sovereignty and oneness of the name Yod-Heh-Vav. Especially, you know, he has to be part of Mashiach ben Yosef is to be united with Mashiach ben David and Moshe. So I'm talking about it as a whole. Mashiach is the force that brings unity between male and female, heaven and earth, body and soul, physicality, spirituality. Because the word achad, oneness, is what Yod-Heh-Vav desires to reveal to us. And the sages says it's an acronym for Adam, which is the masculine, isn't it? Heaven. Chaya, which is the female, and that's also the soul level of Mashiach ben David. And then the Dalith stands for David, who is the Mashiach, the final ultimate revelation of Mashiach. So that they together, you've got female and male, and then you've got David, which is the Mashiach, the concept of the Mashiach. That's what brings unity. So heaven and earth is not this unity, this oneness, this shalom, the vessels and the lights coming together as one, there being a perfect unity, is accomplished through the concept of Mashiach. That's where we accomplish oneness. Once David is revealed, because in David we will see Moshe and Moshiach ben Yosef. It will all be one. But I hope you can understand where I'm going through. So this is a supernal radiance. The soul of Adam is ultimately the last Adam, is the final revelation of Mashiach ben David. Okay, so his radiance of that really is Mashiach ben Yosef. His radiance in his life, what shines from him, is Mashiach ben Yosef. What enlivens him is Mashiach ben Yosef. Okay, so I hope you can appreciate that as well. Now, this is where it all gets rather wonderful, I hope. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped. That's from Isaiah 35:5. Okay, so we are going to now look at some really exciting gematria. And I know this is a long lesson, like I said, unless you're watching the short version, but it's just going to be filled full of light that literally hopefully gets to that place where the eyes of the blind shall be open, including our own, you know. Right, so we've got this one, then the eyes of the blind shall be open. That comes to 117. No, it doesn't. It comes 1,117 regular, 208 ordinal, 1,325. We'll look at these three numbers first, and then they're the Mispar Gadol numbers, the big numbering, based on the fact that you've got a mem. So anyway, the first one is without an anointing oil. This is something that I came across when I was actually studying part of the Metatron, and part of this whole concept of Enoch. Right, Beli Moshiach Beshomen. So this is taken from a verse in Samuel, and it's like King David is, it's after what had happened to Saul and Jonathan, and he's saying it's as if he is without the anointing oil, but that can be read as Beli without Mashiach in oil or on oil. So there is reference that like the anointed one, there's Mashiach there, like Moshiach. So and Beli means without. So it's as if Saul was without being a Mashiach. In his demise was put him in a state where he didn't even look like he had the anointing oil upon him, like he wasn't actually the Mashiach. Right, so that comes to, I'm just going to jump the numbers because there's so much. It says see over 153 fish. We'll go and have a look below for that actually. I've pulled that forward. Yeah, forget all these numbers. These are the Mispar Gadol of this. if we add up the regular and then the Mispah Gadol regular, it comes to 2,234, which is 2 times 1,117. And I've put C over Enoch. We'll probably be seeing that later. I'm going to drill down because these are unbelievable gematria. Okay, so I hope you can appreciate how that might be connected to this concept. Then the eyes of the blind shall be open, because Saul had a blindness as well, didn't it? And that's why when David's looking at him, he's assessing the situation. Well, it looked as if he wasn't even an anointed one. He wasn't even the Mashiach. You know, he was without the anointing oil. He was without one who was truly a Mashiach. Okay, so we want to get to that situation where our eyes are blind. We're not looking at Mashiach Yeshua with the same kind of, well, it looks like he's not got the anointing oil upon him because he's trapped in exile. And everything's been doing it in a very hidden, secret way during exile. But that hiddenness is what was going to be revealed very soon with Hashem's help. Okay, I've put here C over the 153 fish is down below. We've got who has ascended into heaven and descended, comes to 153. That's the ordinal. Highlighted letters spell Me'esav from Esav. So Yeshua descended into Esav and he's redeeming back. He was sold into Edomite slavery. He will need redeeming back. 57 is the ordinal of Teshuvah. So from Me'esav, the ordinal of that is 56, which is the same as the ordinal for Teshuvah. The regular for who has ascended into heaven and descended is 765, okay, which is 5 times 153. Okay, so the ordinal is a multiple of the actual regular, which is one of there's a few very key phrases from within the Messianic texts that have this phenomena where the ordinal is a multiple of the regular, and they're all extremely highly significant and highly Messianic verses or parts of a verse. So that comes to 918, which is exactly the same as without anointing oil. Because when Moshe is in the descent of Erev Rav, it's as if he is not one who is anointed. And also Yeshua, it's as if once they have descended into exile, you know, it's as if they are without anointing oil. You know, the life of Moshe 120 and the life of Yeshua 33 come together as 153. So we see that unity there. This I have gone over loads in my teachings. Who has ascended into heaven and descended. The 153 had like the 153 fishes in the dragnet. It was a code. It's giving over to his disciples. He'd already been crucified, come back down, been incarnated in some way or another. So his disciples couldn't initially recognize him until he started talking and until the incident with the dragnet bringing in all the fish and things like that. Then it was revealed to them, this is actually the Mashiach, the Lord, Master they called him, and things like that. So it was a coded message to say, I am on my way into Edomite exile. I am going, and I will at some point need redeeming back from there, from Esav. He don't belong there. He's not an Edomite. He's a Hebrew. I say this all the time. And but Moshe has also descended, but he's in Erev Rav, is exile. He's descended into Erev Rav, exile, and he also needs redeeming back from there. From the 6, this means, this is from the Talmud, it's from the 6 days of creation. There's certain things, there's really, how I came across that was when I was studying Armalus, which is the Jewish anti-Mashiach. So he was created from the 6 days of creation. And it's also to do with, this is to do with the wine preserved in its skins from the 6 days of creation. That is it. There is a connection with Armalus though. I'm not going to go into that now, but this is referring Mesheshet from the 6 days of creation. Okay, the 6 days of creation from a Jewish point of view are called Metatron. Okay, really it's Yaakov. But he's got some kind of he's the governor of those 6 days, and how those 6 days of creation are, from a Jewish point of view, how those 6 days of creation are manifest. But like I say, that's looking at it from through exilic eyes, and it's not. It's the hidden system within the entire of creation is Moshiach ben Yosef. Okay, so that's how wrong that one is. Right, so 1040 plus 77 comes to 1177. It's 188th prime, and that 188 is Yaakov spelt with an extra vav. So that means Yaakov has been given the additional vav of truth. Okay, 1040 comes to 520 times 2, and 520 is Mashiach ben David plus Mashiach ben David. It's Mashiach ben David 434 plus Mashiach ben David ordinal 82. Okay, and then I think it's plus David 14 comes to 520. Okay, so this is really referencing Mashiach ben David. Okay, as there's a definite link to Mashiach ben David there. And I shall give them one heart. And this comes to 986. I've got Sehover for Zot Chanukah. We will come back to that. It's got 131 ordinal. Together added up come to 1117, which as we can see is a connection to all these concepts. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened. Okay, so once we have got one heart, that will be an opening of our eyes in itself. Okay, and 313 times 3 is 393, and this is the whole concept of Shiloh, the Mashiach, because the ordinal and regular of Shiloh comes to 393. 345 plus 48 is 393, and I have gone over that number so many times. And also binding sheaves comes to 393. I'm talking about Moshe ben Yosef. There was binding sheaves. This is according to Yosef's dream in a field, etc., etc., and all the other sheaves bowed down to him. So the binding sheaves comes to 393. Pinchas. So now we're looking at 208. This is an interesting number. So Pinchas comes to 208. That's a regular, right? I don't think. All right, I've got some stuff written over here. I might come across that number as well. Let's see. Mashiach ben David, spelt rectified with a yud, plus Mashiach ben Yosef is also 208. So we know that this unity between the Meshiachim causes the eyes of the blind shall be opened when we've got that unity. Okay, and Pinchas really is Eliyahu, Anavi, you know, and Eliyahu Anavi is the force of prophecy that reveals the unity between the Meshiachim. Okay, along with Jonah the prophet, Jonah Hanavi. Right, Ani Shalom. So with Pinchas was given a covenant of Shalom, and Ani Shalom. These are the words of King David. I am peace, from Psalm 127. You know, I am for peace. It's usually translated, but it's Ani Shalom. I am peace. 437, which we've got a link up there. Goes to 514. So there's a connection there to there, and this is the whole concept. It's King David that will bring peace. And you know, that's part of the opening of the eyes as well, isn't it? Shalom between body and soul as well. We will come across that concept again. So Me'esav, we've already had that up there. The actual regular of Me'esav from Esav is 416, which is 2 times 208, and that's also equal to Yitzchak. Added with the ordinal 56, it comes to 472, which is 4 times 118, and that is one of the spellings out of Yeshua. Okay, Yeshua to the first filling. Then we've got this phenomenon. This is people who have. This is what I've come across when I've been doing research on Metatron. You've got 5 people that are very much involved with a revelation of Mashiach ben Yosef and a revelation of the Mashiach 5 people here that are very much connected to that revelation that all had unusual deaths or didn't die. So you've got Enoch that didn't die, Enoch, okay? He didn't die. And if you look here, all these wonderful gematria in themselves, but 123 is he sets an end to darkness. So the darkness that he sets an end to is the harsh judgment from on the left side. That's what we get an end to. Enoch became Metatron according to Judaism. Okay, so Enoch was no more. And when he was no more, it was because he was transformed into the angel Metatron. Okay, so Enoch was no more. He set an end to darkness. That is, so it's part of some very, very hidden, concealed reality through which we've got to transform that into a revelation. Okay, so Moshe, obviously, he's involved with the revelation of Moshiach ben Yosef. Eliyahu, Anavi, involved in the revelation of Moshiach ben Yosef and Mashiach. Korach, the whole story, I've done loads of videos on Korach because there's so much wisdom when you look and analyse the whole story of Korach. It's just a phenomenal opportunity to have a revelation. He didn't die normally. Moshe didn't die normally. He died by the kiss of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. He died in unusual circumstances. Nobody knows where he's buried to this day. He's concealed. His death was concealed, and the rabbis even say he didn't die. He didn't die. And even in the Midrash it points out there's 2 aspects to death. Eliyahu didn't die physically, but Moshe, he didn't die. His remembrance didn't die. He's very much kept alive. His memory is very much kept alive, and it's kept alive through the reading of the Torah on a daily basis. So there's 2 aspects to death. One where you physically die and one where your memory is dead, where you're completely forgotten. Moshe did never ever experience that death. So he never fully died. Korach went down into the pit alive. Okay, and it's suggestion that he's still alive in the pit, saying Moshe is true and his Torah is true. Okay, Sarach bat Asher, she never died apparently. She was in the Torah, she lived a very, very long time. She was one of the people mentioned going into the Exodus. She was also one of the people numbered that came out of Egypt. So, and I think numbered going into Eretz Israel. So, a very long life. And according to tradition, she didn't actually die. She entered into heaven alive, similar to Eliyahu. So all those people are to do with the revelation of Mashiach. They come up again and again and again and again and again in various places, very significant revelations, something they didn't quite die. It's as if it's like, he's pointing to the fact that Yosef didn't die. This state of death is not real death. His life is hidden. We've got to reveal that life. We've got to resurrect Yosef from this place of death, if you like. And these forces unite together to bring about that revelation. Concealment is death. So the fact that Yosef is concealed is a kind of death. Revelation is resurrection from the dead. So we wanting to resurrect Yosef from this perceived place of death. And you've got all these incredible people and all these incredible concepts that are attached to these people that help us to attain that resurrection from the dead. Okay? That revelation of Yosef, and then through him we get the revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. So the ordinals of that comes 208. Not only that, there's another phenomena that happens. I've put there Yitzhak is 208. So obviously Yitzhak represents this end to darkness. He's from Gevurah, where he is the holy Gevurah, the holy stringency or whatever, the holy might. But there's also, and in Gevurah there's also the harsh judgments, isn't there? So we want to end that aspect of it. So there is a definite connection as well there. We've got to see this brought to an end. The not so nice consequences from that I'm talking about. If we add up all the ones together, all the regulars together, it comes to, but then we give a double portion to Sarach. Why? Because one, she went into exile, and two, she went out. That was my reasoning. I just did this because I noticed that if you add her up twice for some strange reason, if you give her, you could almost say there was two Sarach bat ashes if you read in the Torah. From one perspective, there must have been two Sarach bat ashes, because realistically, can a person live from, could they have gone into Egypt and then gone into the land of Israel? There is something about, there's two kind of revelations to her, if you like, one descending into Egypt and then one ascending. So there's something about her anyway. But what I'm saying is that if you add those two numbers together, I haven't quite got the Torah to back up why you would need to add those two numbers together, or why you would have to give her a double portion. But maybe she represents in this case Yosef, because he got the double portion over his brothers, and she was the one who found his bones. She was the one with Moshe who found the bones of Yosef, who knew where they had been buried, and she's part of the whole redemption of Yosef's bones that then ultimately fulfilled the promise made to Yosef that he be buried in Eretz Yisrael, and she went into Eretz Yisrael and probably oversaw some of that. So anyway, she's in twice, she's got a double portion. It comes to 1,664, which is 8 times 208. It's quite a phenomenon, really. When you look at what it's all connected to, it's a really wonderful gematria. Right, then you've got this wisdom and Bina. So this is the king and the queen, isn't it? You've got Chokhmah and Bina, the father and the mother, if you like. This is male and female aspects of divinity. There's always unity though here, and we can see how this is also connected to all these massive concepts. So Chokhmah, Bina, and then you've got what's called Da'ath, which really Da'ath is the synthesis between wisdom and understanding, which is Bina, and the father and the mother, and Da'ath is Moshiach. So it goes back to that word echad, doesn't it? Adam, Chaya, and then David, okay, is the Mashiach. So the Da'ath is the Mashiach that brings unity between the male and the female. Okay, so there is connections there as well. It's having the truth regarding the Mashiach. It's having the truth about Mashiach, the Od Yosef Chai, and everything that statement means. And it is a vast statement when you say Od Yosef Chai. It's not just that Yosef is alive, it's knowing exactly what that means. And then attaching that to Moshe and the concept of Mashiach ben David. This is our supernal Da'ath that brings unity between wisdom and understanding, between male and female, between the king and the queen, at that high level. And then at the lower level it would be unity between Yesod or Tifereth and Malkuth via Yesod. Right, and he took into his hand the fire and the knife. So this is Avraham, and going to slaughter Yitzchak. So we can see there's connection there. Okay, so the lamb that was ultimately slaughtered in his place, that the fire and knife was used upon, was really Mashiach ben Yosef. The Yalkut Shimone, Jewish Midrash, says that it wasn't really a ram, it was code name for Mashiach ben Yosef. Okay, which from a Christian point of view or Messianic point of view, we understand that to be the truth. Then and then Mashiach or Moshe 81 plus Yeshua, when it's spelt out and it comes to 127, that also comes to 208. And then we've got this phenomena, which is the 1325, which is these numbers up here. Okay, with the sun and before the new moon, Psalm 72. This is the only instance in the entire Tanakh where the end letters of a word spell Mashiach in order in this way, running in the right flow of the text, from right to left. So Moshiach in red there. The initial letters, you've got an ayin, a shin, a vav, and a yod, and you can rearrange, and that is Yeshua. It's Yeshua who is the Mashiach. And with the sun and before the moon, both of these, the sun is Mashiach ben Yosef, the moon is Mashiach ben David. The sun is the masculine, the moon is the feminine. So you bring in unity again between the male and the female, okay, which is what we've got up here, wisdom and Bina, Chochmah and Bina, okay. So there's a wonderful connection between that. It's all about the unity. It's all about this perfect order. And now Yod-Heh-Vav is enabling that unity to occur, and the unity between Israel and the nations. Okay, there's all kinds of, when we say unity between the male and the female, there's all kinds of, I think the word you could use is fractals of this. There's all kinds of ways in which this unity is manifest. So the unity between the sun and the moon, between heaven and earth, between body and soul, it's all the same concept, but it's just from a slightly different perspective. And then we've got Yavan, Greece, is equal to this 1144. So this really stands in the way of this unity, and it's like what we are now. We're on Zot Hanukkah. This is Hanukkah, the 8th day of Hanukkah, the most holy of all days of Hanukkah. Okay, Hanukkah came about because they had to overthrow the Greek influence, and now we've got Greek and Edomite, Greco-Roman influence regarding the concept of Moshe ben David. Moshe ben Yosef is all been exiled into a Greco-Roman mindset, and makes it very difficult to discern what the actual truth is. So now we've got this verse here. And it will be, because you will heed these ordinances and keep them and perform, that the Lord your God will keep for you the covenant and the kindness that he swore to your forefathers. That's Deuteronomy 7:12. I have analysed this verse loads. Okay. 83 is one of the spellings of Hanukkah when it's got the vav missing. It's a defective spelling, by the way, but it is one of the spellings of Hanukkah. There, look, Hanukkah. And the gematria for this is 7,819, which is 7 times 100, 1,117. So we can see how that links up there. But this is a highly, highly messianic text. Tishma'un, listen to him, is the command to listen to the prophet who is like Moshe, who is Yeshua, by the way. And Wehoya Ekev, in the end there will be reward. That is and it will be. But the rabbis say that Wehoya Ekev, it means in the end there will be a reward, and if you add those up, it comes to 198, which is Moshe ben David, which is 82, plus Moshe ben Yosef, ordinal, 116. Add them together, they come to 198, and it's one of the spellings of Moshe added to one of the spellings of Yeshua as well. That comes to 198. So there's all kinds of things. It's all highly, highly messianic. That's what I'm trying to say. Right, let's go and have a look at this. I think we'll be looking at this next, the Zot Hanukkah. Let's have a look. Really glorious revelation here. Right, so now we're going to have a look at Enoch walked with God. So obviously, from a Jewish point of view, through Jewish eyes, Enoch became Metatron. And we've seen how, from within Judaism, what Metatron is. He is, my way of putting it would be the backside of Moshe ben Yosef. Moshe ben Yosef concealed, in a state of death, which is not the truth. And Enoch walked with God after he had begotten Methuselah 300 years, and he begot sons and daughters. Right, let's go and have a look at these numbers, because these are absolutely incredible. Right, let me just go back and show you what number we're looking at, because it's really important to make this link. We're looking at this. We've come across, and I shall give them one heart, which we know is linked to this. The eyes of the blind shall be opened. So we know that this, I shall give them one heart, is very, very critical in that revelation. And because of this number here, it's such an important number. That's the number that we're going to be focusing on. Okay? Right, so let's have a look. And Enoch walked with God, and after he begot Methuselah, after he had begotten Methuselah 300 years. So that comes to 3,944 regular, 497 ordinarily. Okay. And that comes to 4,441, which is a prime number. The 3,944 is 4 times 986. So 4 times, and I will give them a 1 heart. This is Hanukkah, which is today, is Zot Hanukkah, is 497 plus 74, and that comes to 571. So we're going to have a look, a drill down at this as well, because today is Zot Hanukkah. I'm going to have a look at that. Right, so just slightly change their order and knock that down. So Zot Hanukkah, this is Hanukkah, related to an Enoch walked with God after he'd begotten Methuselah 300 years. Bearing in mind that Enoch is Metatron according to Judaism, and we're wanting to use this power of Zot Hanukkah to bring an illumination. To bring in an illumination that will be able to open the eyes of the blind in this matter. Not just for the Jewish people, but Christians also. Right, then we've got this, at that time, Ezra 8:3-4. Okay, so this comes to 493 plus 61. And it's also got an ordinal of 554. This is okay, so this is related to this verse here. God the Lord said, my strength. God the Lord is my strength. He made my feet as swift as the hinds, and he guides me on my high places to the conductor to play with my melodies. This is, according to Kol Hatot, an appellation from Moshe ben Yosef, so that's why I've included it in there. Right, and this is just a very important, there's a couple of verses in Ezra around here, very, very important, very, very highly coded, but very powerful messianic revelations. I've done a couple of videos, and it's everything is weird, about everything is weird. Really, really wonderful videos. If you were interested, I'd go and have a look. There's some powerful, powerful, powerful revelations within there. So that comes to 493. 2 times that is 986, this number that we've been looking at. We've also got, all right, so now I'm just going to reel these off. These are various spellings out of Moshe and Yeshua together. So this is at the level of Malkuth, when the heir is filled with a heir and the vav is filled with a vav. At the level of Yetzirah, where the vav is filled with an aleph and the heir is filled with aleph. At the Bina, where the vav is filled with an aleph and the heir is filled with a yod. And at Atziluth, when the yod is filled with a yod, the vav is filled with a yod and the heir is filled with a yod. So they're the different levels. And if we add them up together, they're all Moshe's, they're all Yeshua's. Add them up together and it comes to 986. So we can see that this unity is going to overwhelm, if you like, some of the negative aspects of the fact that now Enoch is Metatron. Okay, and it's just a powerful, powerful connection. It's the unity of the Mashiach that should be in place of Metatron. That's what I'm basically saying. And where can we see this unity? First in Moshe and Yeshua. Because they're both the soul of Mashiach. One is the soul of Mashiach at the level of Neshama. One is the soul of Mashiach at the level of Yechida. And their unity will bring about a revelation of Mashiach ben David, which is what we're wanting to accomplish. Okay, remember and do not forget. Zohar el Tishkach. Or Tishchach. It comes at 986. To forget, Yosef was forgotten. This is a state of death. This is like what this is the death that Moshe never tasted. Okay, he was not forgotten. Yeshua, the death that he faced from the point of his brothers, is he was forgotten. His Mashiach ben Yosef has been forgotten. Moshe has not been forgotten. Okay, but Moshe is alive. Sorry, Yeshua is alive. Mashiach ben Yosef is alive. Od Yosef Chai. And I even have evidence of that. There's much better people than me that could speak that as well. So Od Yosef Chai. So together they overcome death. Okay, the full 2 aspects of death are overcome with them both. You know, they need to be united to overcome the power of death. One, the aspect of that Moshe overpowers, like I say, he's not forgotten. Yeshua is forgotten, but he is alive and in exile. He's within all of us, bringing all of us to life, gathering us in. It's wonderful. Okay, so remember and do not forget. 986. Okay, let's move on. And I shall give them one heart. So that's what we originally looked at. We've already gone through that. From the 6th, they've already gone through that. To provoke the eyes of his glory. Okay, so certainly the eyes of his glory, his honour, has been provoked by the way Moshe has had to descend into Erev exile and Yeshua in Edomite exile, Greco-Roman exile. That has provoked the eyes of his glory, because in the state of exile, his glory is diminished. We've got the handmaid there instead of the queen. We've got the slave instead of the king. His glory is diminished with the slave in charge. His glory is diminished with the handmaid in charge. And it's only through Moshe and Yeshua can the queen and the king be united as one. Okay? And we're elevated as children of the king. We're elevated up when they're elevated up. We stop being slaves. Trying to avoid the punishment of this slave master, taskmaster, who, if we don't do his bidding, anything could happen. He's still living a life of fear and dread. This is not our Father in heaven. This is a servant imposing his slave mentality upon us. This is a very other way of looking at Yod Heh Vav Heh. It's not Yod Heh Vav Heh. Body of Moshe. So provoke the eyes of his glory. We've got this is taken from Jude, from New Testament, but this is a Hebrew version of the New Testament, 844. So the fact that Moshe's body is in exile, is in a state of concealment. He needs to be revealed, resurrected from the dead. That's what Revelation is. 764, may his name be erased. So may his name be erased. Yimach Shemo, Uzikro, may his name and his memory related to this. Look, Zohar, to forget, was Zikro, so his remembrance is forgotten. His remembrance is completely forgotten. Okay, by having his name erased. This is talking about Mashiach ben Yosef. He's had his name erased. Yimach Shemo with Zikro is the initial letters of Yeshu. May his name be erased, and that's the name that the rabbis call Jesus, Yeshu. It means may his name be erased and erased, and may his name be and his memory be erased. Okay, so it comes to 644 regularly, and it comes to 643 regularly. And I can't remember the ordinal. I don't think I've got it, you see. But together they come to the regular and the ordinal of it come to 764. Okay, which is 4 times. Oh, it's related to shepherd, for example. It's also 4 times 191. I think we might come to that. No, we don't. It might be on another teaching. But basically, what provokes the eyes of his glory. The way that Moshe is treated, diminished, exiled into Erev Rav, exile, and the way Yeshua is diminished by the Erev Rav and by the Edomite Greco-Roman exile, to be the idol. He's become like an idol, dressed in filthy rags of idol worship, rather than is the truth about him revealed, that he is, the king. Yosef is a king. He's not an Egyptian, he's not a Roman, he's a Hebrew. So anyway, and then this is the final one. Now the Lord God said, behold, man has become like one of us, having the ability of knowing good and evil, and now lest he stretch forth, and the next one will be his hand. Okay, so that comes to 493, so we can see that's all connected to this. Okay, this is talking about the tree of life, and then this bit here is 8 times 364, and 364, it would be 16 times 188, which is either 16 times Yaakov rectified, or this here is Hasatan, the devil. Okay, so we've always got an equal opposite. The opposite holy is an equal unholy opposite. So, you've always got to rectify or transform the concealment into a revelation. Okay. And when we see the unholy opposites, we can see how perfect Yod He Vav has created everything in absolute perfect balance, and that in itself is a revelation of the name Yod He Vav in its utter and absolute oneness, because it's not by chance that everything was equal and opposite each other. Somebody orchestrated that, an utter perfect one orchestrated that perfection. Didn't happen by chance. So that's sometimes when we're looking at the numbers, we can see that perfection revealed. And then we've got Korach's sons, however, did not die. So Korach, he didn't die either. He just got swallowed by the mouth of the earth, which according to Pirkei Avot, the way it's spelt in Pirkei Avot, it equals Yeshua. The mouth of the earth equals Yeshua. And I go through that on my teachings. It's really, really profound. It's about accessing our future reality now, drawing the future into the now. And that's what we've got to do. Our whole mentality has got to be with the power to draw our future rectified self into this moment today. Okay? So that's obviously connected there. Let's go and have a look what else I've got. Okay, so I'm just going to go alter this a little bit so that we're bringing it in one at a time. Okay, I've just gone back because I want to point this out. This is Hanukkah. So after this next slide that I go through, we're going to come back to this concept, Zot Hanukkah, and go through this number, which is unbelievably wonderful. Let's just go forward then. Okay, so really quickly, Rashi also points to this as the harbinger of the Messiah. They will become Shifla Me'ed, very low, as Deuteronomy 32:36 puts it, their power is gone. At that point, their troubles will cease and the Mashiach will come. Okay, so yes, he will come. Zot Hanukkah, he will come. Okay, let's go back. Oops. Okay, so this is the next slide, and I'm just going to keep going until all this light has come out into this world in this one teaching, because it is glorious stuff. So blessed be the Lord God of Israel from world to world, and from people and all the people shall say Amen, hallelujah. Now, I don't know whether you can remember, but in one of the teachings from a Jewish perspective, it was written that Metatron is this force, min ha'olam wa ad ha'olam. So he's like this entire backbone of creation from one world to the other. That's how I ended up doing this particular verse. Okay, so I did a whole analysis on this verse. Very, very long analysis. I'd like to go through it at some time. But anyway, and then again we've got here the 383, which we just looked at that number, didn't we? And we saw how it was related. Let's just go back, see if we can pick them up again. Oh, didn't really want to start again, but we've got the 383 there. And I think we had another 383 somewhere. But anyway, the mixed multitude, at least we've got that bit. Was it down here somewhere? No, maybe not. But anyway, so it's 383's come up. Oh yeah, Yosef's still alive. That was it. We've already gone through this now, haven't we? Right, yeah. So we had 383 here as well regarding Yosef being alive. So he's the force that overcomes the the evil multitude. And then here as well, we've got 383. So obviously this is what I'm trying to say. This number is quite significant. And there's other things that it comes to. We're going to be having a look at this number, however, 556. Why? Because and who creates evil. So this is what we've got. Yod He Vav is created evil and is formed light. He's formed light and created darkness. He has made peace, made shalom. I can't remember how it goes now, but anyway, the evil is at a higher level than the peace, basically. But we've got to transform the evil into shalom. That's what we've got to do. We've got to get to a place where we're transforming our lower natures into holy natures, that our soul dominates over our body rather than our body dominated over our soul. And that is a place of redemption that we need to get to. And obviously we've got Yonah here again. 71 is Yonah. And every major concept which regards the Mashiach ben Yosef, because Mashiach ben Yosef is empowering us even during this exile with the strength to overcome our urges for evil. This has all been done in a very hidden way. But that comes to 556 as well. I can't remember. I've gone in. I spoke too long, too many hours now. I can't even remember the verse, but it's from Isaiah. It says, "Who forms light and creates evil, who makes peace and creates who forms light and creates darkness, who makes peace and who creates evil. I am the Lord who has done these." It's some kind of order like that, but I'm speaking of memory and I've been speaking a long time, so I'm a bit tired now. Reshimu, this is the residue that's left within creation. It's the trace of the infinite that is left, that really because obviously the infinite can't fit within finite reality. So it's left this, what's called in Judaism, a residue. Okay. And from that, everything's created. So obviously we can see there's a connection to this here. And so we obviously can also see there's a connection from this to an ultimate revelation of his name. Okay. Let's see what else. And we've got this Zoth. This is the Torah. Okay, so from this residue, which is the impression of if you like, of Yod He Vav He within creation, the impression is left of his name, his seal, if you like, to help us, understand him, to help us to understand that is infinite. Plus, it's that everything is formed out of this residue. So we can see how evil is connected to it as well. Why? Because we also need to take the evil and transform that into a revelation. Okay. And I've just been reading the book that afternoon, and my mind can't work quick enough now to process this, but the evil is part of the concealment, and that is the creation, that is the work that we've got to do. We've got to take the concealment of his name and transform that itself into a revelation, just as we've got to take the evil and transform it into shalom, and we've got to take the darkness and transform that into light. And the ultimate light is the name Yod He Vav He. Right, so this is the Torah, comes to 1112, which is 2 times that, I think, and it's also 8 times 139. So 8 times Yonah HaNavi, the prophet. This refers to the level of Torah called clear Torah, the Torah of redemption. The Torah of exile is the Torah of doubt. So this is why we need clarity to overcome all the forces of doubt that we're presented with in exile. Zot Chanukah is 497. We've already looked at these numbers, aren't we? This is me adding them up now, and that would come to 3 times 531. I'm not going to have time to have a look at that number, but I want to have a look at this because it relates back to Enoch, what we're talking about, because Enoch became Metatron. So on Enoch, what we've got, and after you'd begotten Methuselah 300 years, I think we've already had a look at that, haven't we? Yes, we have. Right, so now we're going to have a look at the clear Torah. So Torah, this is the clear Torah, which is very much linked to this Torah. This is the Torah. It's a Torah of redemption. It's that where there's no more delusion. We are very clear what we're dealing with. This is the Torah. This is Hanukkah. Okay, very clear and precise and certain. It really means certain, as in no doubt whatsoever. It's the opposite of a Torah of doubt. It's a Torah of certainty. This is the Torah. Okay, it comes to 1033. wonderful number, 97. Together they come to 1,130. We're going to see over for that, because this is, we just need to explore, it's just glorious. And was no more, Nenu. Enoch walked with God, and then he was no more. And that word is Nenu. So when he was no more, he became Metatron according to Judaic esoteric teachings. So that has a squared ordinal of 565, which is exactly 2 times the clear Torah. So we know that once he became Metatron, he actually conceals the name. He's like a dual force, isn't he? Sometimes reveals, sometimes he conceals. Sometimes he's a rod of Halloween that helps fight doubt, i.e. Moshe with a rod of Halloween in his hand, and you're up on the mountain, Joshua down below fighting Amalek. Sometimes he helps us overcome the doubt, but then sometimes it's like a serpent that bites you. It's ever changing. It's like a shapeshifter. What is it? What is it? Who is it? But this is Enoch, who was no more. And there we go, look. We've got another 123, which is sets an end to darkness. But the square ordinal of that is 565. So clearly linked to this. From this concealment, it's like, it says the angel of Lord, obey him because my name is within him. So in order for us to get a full revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, we've got to go head to head with these concepts that conceal and transform that concealment into revelation, and then that concealment itself becomes the clear, certain Torah. The thing that presents us with the doubt becomes the certainty itself. You know? Torah of doubt, 1,246 plus 121. There's loads. I'm going to go over that because that is the sheaf of Yosef. This presents a problem. The brothers didn't want to bow to the sheaf of Yosef because they didn't understand what it was. 1367. So we'll look at both these numbers. The Lord gives sight to the blind. Okay. So this is taken from, I think this is from Psalm 106. Am I right? No, 146 possibly. The Lord gives sight to the blind. So we've just been looking at Isaiah 35:5, but this is from Psalms. Adonai pokeach ivrim. I was looking at these words because I knew, I had an inspiration that when I started to look at Metatron, and I started to look at and write all those things that I wrote up at the beginning of the tape, of the video. I'm looking and I'm thinking, wow, this is just blindness. That was the word that was coming to my mind. When I was listening to see what, from a Jewish perspective, what Metatron looked like from a Jewish perspective, to me, who could see the obvious, that this is not Metatron, this is your Mashiach ben Yosef. And only in the light of this truth are you going to see Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, and this is just some shape-shifting. And all the study that I did into Metatron, and I was thinking, wow, this is a real blindness here. And this is on account of Yosef being sold into slavery. And an account in the brother's eyes is dead. This is not the truth, and this truth is this. So the jealousy and the hatred, which was obviously needed to be taken care of, it needed rectification, caused this blindness. And that was the word that was coming into my mind. It was just studying Metatron. I was aware there's just been a massive blindness. We've been even blind to who we are. So we just acted like slaves and serpents to these slaves and servants, well, like serpents in a way, to each other. Slaves and servants to this taskmaster, this servant who's instead of the king. But it's all the will of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh to do all this. It's all him. Perfect faith comes, and we have to fight all these powerful forces that stand in the way of us attaining perfect faith. When we have perfect faith in him, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, we are near him and clung to him. This is a tree of life. There's lots of delusion that blind us. It's rooted in our own egos. This is the log that is in our own eyes that we can't see. So it was I was just getting this inspiration about blindness. So I ended up doing some analysis on where it says the Lord gives sight to the blind, because I'm thinking this is what's going to be needed. This is what we need. And it was reminded what Yeshua said, how he came and he healed the blind. even those born blind. So this was a big inspiration for me. Then when I started to do it all, it all started to piece together. So I'd already done this verse, and then I was looking at Isaiah 35, which is what we've been looking at today, and then it all starts to piece together. The Torah of doubt is exactly the same as the Lord gives sight to the blind. Okay, I had only just come across this through Zot Hanukkah, and I looked at, I did some Torah study and came across the concept of Zot HaTorah, Zot Hanukkah. I already knew about both of them, but it weren't until I did the numbers to them. And then when I was doing research on that, I did some Torah study based on what Rav Kook had said, and he mentioned about the Torah of doubt. So you imagine I'm pulling these numbers out, and instantly, as I'm pulling the numbers out, looking for answers to this problem of blindness, it all links up. To me, it was absolute, and this is what I mean when you get a joy and a love, because, as you're going and searching and looking and hunting down this concept of Metatron and what the problem is, you've got such joy that you're able to secure and grab hold of these treasures that you find along the way on that hunt. It's just like a proper treasure hunt, and you get so excited about it. When I'm looking at these numbers, I really am excited about it, because I know the process that was involved. I know the adrenaline that were flowing, like, this is a concept, it's too big for me, should I go for this, which should I turn left or right, where should I go with this one? And you're relying on your instincts, like this blindness, if I've got this inspiration for blindness, let's just go down that road. And then seeing it all, how it weaves together so wonderfully, it's just a joy. So getting a bit excited about it. I thought I'd share that excitement with you. Right, so Torah of doubt. The Lord gives sight to the blind. Pretty sure that's Psalm 146. Let me just check in my thingy. I think it's one of the last ones from 146, last verses. Because I've just analysed it, so yes, it is. It says... He gives bread to the hungry. Hashem releases the bound. Hashem gives sight to the blind. And that is 146, Psalm 146, 8. So I've just analysed that entire verse, and it was a joy to do it. All these numbers, just all these. I've got to do another lesson. I can't go through it in today's lesson, but I'm just pulling you through one number from a vast array of wonderful numbers that... help us to understand this concept even deeper and more wonderfully. Right, so this here is a filling out of Yosef to the second filling. So Yod, Vav, Samech, Peh for Yosef. That comes to 1246. He is the force that overcomes the Torah of doubt and gives sight to the blind. And then we've got in Haran, Beharan. This was a recent study that I did about Sarah and Abraham and the souls that they made in Haran, Baharan. Very, very messianic term. All these numbers are highly messianic. I can't go through them today, but as we can see, the Mispar Gadol and the regular add up to 1529, which we can see is connected to Yosef, another revelation about Yosef. The souls that they made in Haran are very much connected to Yosef, and it makes me think about, well, are the souls that they made in Haran connected also to the lost house of Israel? The souls of the lost house of Israel, or the souls of the converts that they would have to come back after, what I mean by converted is we are like strangers in a way. We've been estranged from Torah. We've totally been estranged from our roots and everything like that. And the power of Mashiach ben Yosef is reviving us to who we truly are, our true identity, how Yod He Vav He made us. We're ultimately children of the King. We're children of the King. We serve in Yod He Vav, nothing else beside, and it's the power of Yosef, the King within us, the Mashiach within us, that's bringing us back to that place of revivification, resurrection from the dead. I was dead and now I live. Okay, so this is glorious again. You've got the 5 books of Torah. Okay, Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar and Devarim. they come to 2,408, which is 5 times 496. That's a very messianic, very, very messianic number. That's the ordinal of those books. Add them together, they come to 2,734, which is 2 times 1,367. Okay, which is 2 times the Torah of doubt. Okay. So we've got to transform our Torah of doubt, our Torah in exile, into a Torah of redemption. Okay, because this represents Moshiach ben David and this represents Moshiach ben Yosef. And I've done loads of lessons. There was one on Noah, 601, and Noah. And at the first 5 minutes of that show how this is related to Moshiach ben Yosef, this is related to Moshiach ben David. And it's through that verse that I've just messed up in Isaiah, who forms light and creates darkness. That one there shows you how that is related to Moshiach ben Yosef. The ordinal numbering is Moshiach ben Yosef. The little numbering, the bigger numbering is Moshiach ben David. Okay. It's the Mashiach that brings us. The truth about Mashiach brings us to a place where we're able to overwhelm all the doubts. And it's the doubts that primarily attack the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. So we've got read with beautiful eyes. We can see how the average book of the Torah is related to read with beautiful eyes, which is how King David is described, and is also likened to the moon, because these are there's 3 ways to describe the moon, 3 words used to describe the moon. The luminary that is small at night, and those 3 words come to 496. Okay. And also Yeshua, 386, plus Yeshua HaMashiach, the ordinal of Yeshua HaMashiach, add them together, that's also 496. And then we've got this, whose son, which comes to 141, which is a Muna, which we've already gone across the concept of a Muna quite a lot in the last slide. What else have we got? We've got the 39 and 50. If we add those together, the ordinal of the regular and the ordinal of the Mispar Gadol comes to 89, which is the ordinal of Yetzer Hara, evil inclination. So we know whose son it's really talking about. It's really connected to a revelation of Mashiach ben Yosef. Okay. And the truth regarding Mashiach ben Yosef, when we can answer that question, whose son? It's Yeshua, whose son? And it somehow overcomes that Torah of doubt, the doubt that is regarding him. But the reason why it's difficult to answer that question, whose son, is because the whole concept of Mashiach ben Yosef is actually helping us to overcome our evil inclination. It's the battle that we've got between our evil inclination and our good inclination as well. And Mashiach ben Yosef is empowering us in that battle. Okay, through the truth about Yosef, or Yosef Kai, he empowers us to defeat that evil inclination. So this question, whose son, is very much related to the concept of Mashiach. And also to, it's also related to Emuna. And like I've pointed out, 2 times Emuna comes to the regular and ordinal of Yosef, which is 204. 204 is 156, the regular of Yosef, and 48, the ordinal of Yosef. So together they come to 204. So 204 is 2 times 102, and 102 is Emuna. So 2 lots of faith that I talked about, why he was suffering for 2 reasons. The concept of Mashiach, the belief in the true Mashiach, the Mashiach of Yodeh Vaveh, not the Mashiach of our fantasy fiction, and the resurrection of the dead. We've already gone across that, talked about that. All right, so this is a very, very, very powerful verse. It comes up all the time. 156, 4 times Yonah Anavi. Because the enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will share the booty, my desire will be filled from them, I will draw my sword and my hand will impoverish them. Okay. Baal Shem Tov pointed out that these alephs, which really are aluf shel alam, and yet they are the initial letters of some quite horrible things, because the enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, and I will share my booty, or my portion. He says that even in the evil that we experience, Okay, who creates evil? Yod-Heh-Vav creates evil for an ultimate good. Even in the evil, it's only Yod-Heh-Vav hidden, and it's for us to reveal the truth that there is nothing besides Yod-Heh-Vav. So it's for us to take that evil experience and transform it into a revelation. We've got to take the concealment of Mashiach ben Yosef and transform it into a revelation. We've got to try to take the lie that Yosef is dead and transform it into the truth. Yosef, Od Yosef Chai. Okay, and that is associated with the power of Yon Hanavi. Okay, to overwhelm that hiddenness and concealment. That's very much connected to Yon Hanavi, because the truth is, our body is not evil in and of itself. It's when that dominates over our soul. That's where there's a problem. Okay? So it's not a case of, it's a case of refining things and getting things in the right order so that our soul dominates over our body. And not as slaves. As children of the King. It's at the right level as well, isn't it? It's like not just being like, well, my soul dominates over my body, but whilst you're serving a slave and doing slave work, what's the point of that? You've got to reach the level when you are in the king's palaces as a child of the king, with all the liberty that brings you, because you are just aware of the unchanging love of Yod-Heh-Vav and his belovedness and his nearness to you, and you've got intimacy and you're face to face with him. And then what do? It's in that situation that you still bring honour to the king, your father. It's you understand there's a difference, isn't there? We can all our bodies can dominate over our souls. Our souls can dominate over our body, but at what level? Where at what level? We need to get the highest level possible, where we are fully conscious of who we are in the presence of our Father the King. And we are still behaving in a way which is glorifying his name. We are still not departing from we're not even when we're liberated from this slavery, we have no desire at all ever than to serve our Father the King in love and joy, in ways, and live our life in ways that's pleasing to him. But it's not in this slave mentality. Do this ourselves. It's what's the point of your soul dominating over your body when you're still in slavery? There's no point or purpose to that. You're in exile, and that's the end of it. You've got to get out of exile any means possible, and then get home, face to face with the name Yod-Heh-Vav. So I hope I'm making myself understood. I'm getting a bit tired now, so I'm going to continue though, because I want this light to shine. I just so want this light to shine. It's just a small portion of some of the glory that I've said. I spoke about. So I've got to go back now, so keep everybody on board. Right, let's just go look what we're looking at now. We saw something with 121, didn't we? Where did I see that? I think I mentioned it from the last one. 121. Oh yeah, this is the Torah of doubt. It's all about doubt in Yosef, by the way, because we're going to have a look at this 121 now. Doubt comes because we didn't understand the sheaf, the motif of the sheaf, the coded message of the sheaf. The sheaf is the lost holy sparks that are going to bring us back to our true consciousness, our true messianic consciousness. Okay, we aren't going crazy, thinking that we are Mashiach incarnate. We've all got to raise ourselves up and be more conscious of who we actually are, and more conscious of who Yod-Heh-Vav is, and get rid of this Metatronic mindset that's causing us to be nothing but slaves and living in fear. We've all got to battle with fear. I have battled with fear a lot in my life. I'm not going to mock anybody who's in a state of fear. I have been afraid of everything. I have been afraid of everything. I have properly been infected by the lies of exile. I have been a slave to fear. Honestly, this is why I'm so relieved. Any progress I can make to escape the clutches of fear and intimidation and threat, and just be in the presence of my Father in heaven, just proud of serving him and not this stupid fear that's based on experiences of exile. But your body has endured a lot. This exile, as we have endured a lot. Okay, it's paid a price. Like when I said about the residue, the reshimu, where God left an imprint within creation of his name. Okay, so we're in exile, and this exile has left an impression within us, and it takes some scrubbing clean, and that impression within us is fear. Ultimately fear and intimidation, and we're like quivering wrecks, and we've fooled ourselves into believing that is fear of Yod Heh Vav Heh, but for the most part it's possibly not. It's the wrong type of fear. We've got to be, our only true fear should be concealment of his name, that. But when we've eradicated all the concealment, what have we got to be afraid of then? Nothing. It's not hidden anymore, is it? It's just that once we've eradicated all these doubts that we had in Yod Heh Vav Heh, we've attained perfect faith in his name. There's no more concealment that can frighten us. We're not living in a shadow any longer. So let's go and have a look at this sheaf that Moshiach ben Yosef has been gathering in. Not Metatron, no. Yosef has been gathering this sheaf in, and at this sheaf we all will bow, because it's wonderful. Okay, so for he knows our creation, he remembers that we are dust. Okay, comes to 1,210, 10 times 121. So let's just go through all these. So this is the 4 levels of Torah: Peshat, Remez, Drosh, Sod. Okay. Honestly, I've done whole lessons on this. It's called the teachings on the orchard. Right, add up all the regular, comes to 1,210, which is 10 times 121, 10 times sheaves. Alumim, all the sheaves will bow to Yosef's sheaf. My sheaf arose. I'm part of it, and I'm glad. So I hope we can all tell our story of how we have been gathered in with the power of Moshiach ben Yosef. Then, and we can share our stories, can't we? We can share our stories, We are glad that, not that I want people to bow to me, I want people to bow to what Yod Heh Vav Heh has done through his Mashiach, the Mashiach of Yod Heh Vav Heh, in order to bring me to life, to know him, to draw me close. He's glorious. I'll bow my knee. I'll confess my tongue. I'll turn every wicked person in this world to do the same, because I'm so empowered and impassioned by this truth. I'm so alive by it, because it's my life. And it makes me want I think, if only you knew the truth, wicked people, there'd be no more wicked people. I've talked about this before, when I first had that revelation, when I felt like we brought it into the palace of the king, I could finally, I was in a place of concealment place of revelation rather than concealment. Only just, like my nose in the door, peeping round, I could just see him. Don't let me take my eyes off him. And just trying to get my body to conform to his light rather than the forces of exile dragging me back out of the door. I was like, let me get my foot in. And I was a big strain, because the forces, the impression that evil has had within us is going to drag us back. It's so powerful. I had to force myself in, through the crack of the door. It was a job. Turning away from this exilic mindset, it was a job. And keeping my eyes focused on the little cracks that I got of Yod Heh Vav Heh, and just not letting, and the concealment was slowly getting further in. I'm nearly in. I'm pushing my way in. I didn't want to go back. Once I'd seen just even glimpsed inside Palace, I weren't going back. I couldn't even stand the thought of it. I realised how far I'd fallen. And, it's all done by Moshiach ben Yosef. And the more you are aroused to the truth about Moshiach ben Yosef, the more securely inside that palace you are. until, and when you are able to erase all the doubts regarding the Mashiach of Yod Heh Vav Heh, you haven't got even a fear of concealment anymore. You just simply haven't. It's more and more erased. Has my fears completely gone? No, I still fear death. I know that is something I've got to overcome, and part of my journey, I did overcome it to some degree, because I've recently had COVID pneumonia, and that was one of the things, but not 100%. But I know it's just some trace of some exile just lingering around, and I just can't quite get shut of it, but it will be eradicated. I have absolute faith in the name Yod Heh Vav Heh to complete the task. I have absolute faith for all humanity. That sheaf is worth bowing down to, because we are all a part of it. Okay, and whether we were aware of it serving Metatron or not, we've all served the forces of exile, and we've all thought we were serving Yod Heh Vav Heh by doing it, and in a disguised way we were. Okay, we didn't know any better. Right, so may his name be erased in his memory. We've already talked about this, haven't we? So this is one of the numbers that we're struggling with, weren't it? 643 plus 121, that's the number that I couldn't remember. Comes to 764, 4 times 191. 191 equals the ordinal for all the names of Moshiach in Talmud. Yinon 44, Menachem 48, Shiloh 48, and Chanina 51. And the initial letters for all them, the Mem, Shin, Yod, Chet, spell Mashiach. Okay, they're the 4 names that the Talmud say for Mashiach. And as we can see, who is the Mashiach, the one who had his name erased? Who had his name erased? Yeshua, Mashiach ben Yosef. Okay, face to face, 121, that's where we want to get to, don't we? When he brings his sheaf into the palace. We'll be bringing us in with him, honestly. It's not been a free ride though, has it? It's just been part of a glorious plan. He will go along Holech Yelech from Psalm 126. I've done this in previous teaching on Arizal, the first Arizal teaching I did. This is reference in a way to Eliyahu Hanavi, because it's reference to John the Baptist, the Eliyahu Hanavi who came to elevate Yeshua up to the level of Mashiach ben Yosef. Is what John the Baptist. I've done teachings about that. So that's 121, 67 ordinal. I think that's Bina, which is the mother. And then that brings us to a place of rectification with Yaakov. This is like connected to Eliyahu Hanavi, and it's Eliyahu Hanavi that gives Yaakov the truth, Od Yosef Chai. Okay. Sheaves, so Alamim, have already gone through that. The man became a living soul. So it's got 2 connections, look. It's connected up to this concept here. It's 643, exactly the same as may his name be erased as his memory, which is code name for Yeshu, which is the derogatory way which Mashiach ben Yosef is called. So then they end up serving Metatron, because they didn't want to bow to this glorious sheaf, because there was a problem with their faith that needed correcting, and at the right time that will be corrected. Okay, and like I say, when they are corrected from them, the Jewish people will be birthed Mashiach ben David. May that come today. And then the Mispar Gadol of this, the man became a living soul, is 1093, and that's got an ordinal of 121. So together, man became a living soul is these 2 numbers. May his name be erased in his memory. The man that becomes a living soul is Mashiach. Okay, there's a connection also. All right, and Yosef said to his brothers, so 605 is 5 times 121. That there, 136 is Kisei Dawid, regular and ordinal. So the regular is 95, the ordinal is 41. Together come to 136. Kolator. Vilna Gaon said, the Kisei David, the throne of David, is Mashiach ben Yosef. So we have, until we build the throne, until we understand this vast concept, there is no throne for Mashiach ben David to sit upon. We've got to get that bit right. 605 is Yisrael, the regular and order of Yisrael. Okay, this is another thing that's fallen into error and exile, because like I say, Yisrael is not just Judah, it's Judah and Yosef together as one under Melech David. Okay, so this needs rectifying. And Yosef has been gathering in those lost of the house of Israel through the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, albeit it's descended into Greco-Roman exile, but he has still been gathering their souls. Okay, just like the Jews are not yet free from Erev Rav influence, the Christians are not yet free from Edomite influence, but they are waiting for that day, because even whether they don't know it or not, all our souls are screaming out. It's just a silent scream. We know who we are. It's just hidden from us. So we're just going along with the tricks and the illusions that are more dominant at this time in exile. But our souls are screaming out. Our souls are screaming out. You know, we want the truth. We want the truth. Flowing with milk and honey, Numbers 16:14, comes to 847. Okay, which is 121 times 7. We've come across this number before. I'm going to show you what it is in a minute. El Elyon, the Most High God. All these numbers are, again, highly messianic. And we've got 71 again, which is Yonah. 197, which is Emmanuel. And then 840 and 82, which is the ordinal of Mashiach ben David. 1044, that's 153, who was ascended and descended. There's loads of things involved in that. But 847, land flowing with milk and honey, or flowing with milk and honey. It's talking about the land. Yisrael, the land, which is for all the children of Israel. And then this is the one that is glorious, look. So we've got Shalom and we've got Esav. We add them together. They come to 847. That's part of the sheaf. Bringing peace to Esav, to the nations, is part of the whole process that we're going through now with Mashiach ben Yosef. And then we've got this. Can't quite see. I know it comes from somewhere, but I can't quite see. Oh, right, yeah. So we've got the Most High God, which is 1044. Which is 2 times 522, Yeshua, which is Mashiach ben Yosef. And you can see there's a connection. All these concepts are connected to the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. 117, ordinally. You've got the olive leaf, okay. The olive leaf, which is in the mouth of the dove, which is Yonah. Dove is called Yonah. So that comes to 594, the regular and the ordinal. Which is also 6 times 99. And then you've got Mashiach, Moshe and Yeshua, who comes to 198. That's the unity of Moshe and Moshiach ben Yosef in order to bring about revelation of Mashiach ben David. And 198 times 4 is 594. So we've got that connected back to there. And 99 is another very important number. And then we've got this. Okay, so I am the Lord, and besides me there is no Saviour. I did a teaching on this, it's absolutely brilliant. Comes to 1089, which 1089 is 3 times 363 and 9 times 121. 363 is our Mashiach. So we can see the Mashiach is connected to this concept of sheaths, alumim. Okay, so I can hope you appreciate this is all glorious stuff. Right, let's see if we've got any more. Right, this is it, finally. Let's see what numbers we're going through now. So we're going to have a look at this clear Torah. We want to know, okay, so we've had a look at the Torah of doubt and all that's involved with. You know, the Torah of doubt regarding the sheaf of Yosef. So we need to be very clear, what is the sheaf of Yosef? What has Yosef exactly been achieving? We've just had a look at that now. Let's go and have a look at the Torah. That is certain. This is the Torah. This is Hanukkah. Okay, so we've got this here. To him who made great luminaries, for his kindness is eternal. So that comes to 1033, which is exactly the same as clear Torah, certain Torah. 1033. And then we've got the 1130, which is 2 times the square ordinal and was no more. And this is Metatron, Enoch that was no more. And he was Metatron instead. Daughters of the king. Okay, Banot HaMelech. Okay, so they're going to bring about a revelation of the clear Torah. And I'd like to count myself as part of that. You know, I know I'm not the only one, but yeah, definitely, absolutely. Banot HaMelech, without question. Okay, so 638, the regular and the ordinal. The Mispagdol, however, is exactly the same as Clear Torah. Okay, 133 plus 97 is 1130. So, again, a force that comes against this Metatron, thankfully. And then all these other numbers, I don't think we'll be needing to go through that. Okay, so Yeshua, this is the regular squared, full squared of his name. So 100, Shin squared, 90,000, Vav squared, and then the Ayin squared comes to that, which is 92 times 133. 92 is Moshiach ben David rectified, times this concept, the daughter of the king. Okay, Clear Torah, Yeshua. Is a revelation of the clear Torah that brings us to this place of being. This is really perfect faith, isn't it? The daughter of the king is perfect faith. You know, it's related to Emunah. That's why we've been constantly going over the concept of Emunah. And also this, man is a tree of the field. Well, we've got the 92, haven't we? That's connected to that. I think there was another connection, but it's just gone from my mind now. I'm just trying to fathom it all out. Might come back to me. And then, all right, we're going to have a look at some of these 92s, aren't we? So we've got 92, man is a tree of the field, Moshiach ben David, because we've seen how this is connected. The clear Torah is connected to Yeshua through these concepts. Let's have a look at the 92. The 92 is the Vav filled out as well, with a Yod in the middle. Okay, so Vav, and then that's the first filling of Vav with a Yod in the middle, and then the second filling of Vav with a Yod in the middle comes to 92, which is Mashiach ben David. Okay, Yosef is still alive. That's also 92, so we can connect it up to these concepts. It's all glorious. And then a prophet from among you, from your brothers, like me. That comes to an ordinal of 884, which is 2 times 92. And this also, this 624 is 4 times 156, 4 times Yosef. Okay? And that 808 is Takaf, as in Takaf Beno instead of his son. And there's all kinds of other things. Abraham with Mispagdol, with the men being 600. Right, and mourn for him like an only son. So that comes to 92. We know that Mashiach ben Yosef, you know, it appears that he's dead. He's physically dead, but he's also descended. His soul has descended in order for us to live. Okay, so he lives in us. And we all need that, to feel that resurrection within us and to bring that to life. And through that being alive within us, we are able to serve Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, the true king, and we will be the sons and daughters of the king. So, and mourn for him comes to 364 together, which is Hasatan. It's also 2 times Yaakov. Okay, so the truth shall set you free again. Yaakov represents the Vav, which you see here, and also the truth. The Vav represents the truth. I have surely remembered, Pakod, it comes to, the Pakod bit comes to 184. So that was the first redemption really, wasn't it? Or Pakod, I have surely remembered you. So part of that is connected, obviously, to that. Yeah. And then we've also got this, and its breath, it is gathered them, him, in. This is part of the, Yosef has been gathering in the sheaves, basically. So he's been in disguise like a beggar, who, kabatsan means beggar. It also means gathering in like a beggar will gather bits of money for charity. And that's what he's been like. He's just been like a beggar in exile, gathering us in. That comes to, 591 is 3 times 197, which is God with us, Emmanuel. So God is near us, even though we're in a state of exile. God is near us through Mashiach ben Yosef. Okay. and that comes to 1,130, the mispagad, all of that, which we can see is clear Torah, And then we've got this connection up here, daughters of a king, is the same as shofar and emunah, okay? So daughters of a king, this is when I said it's about emunah, because that's the regular, that's the ordinal, that's the squared ordinal, add them together. It's like a shofar blowing. What is that really? That's our emunah. When our emunah blows forth from within us, it's the breath that we breathe. It's the name Yod He Vav. It's just complete faith in the name Yod He Vav. True faith in Yod He Vav, the truth. Okay, so it's like a shofar within us, heralding the Mashiach. Okay, and it's also connected to the daughter of the king, who is faith. Faith. That's what gets us into the palace of the king. It's our emunah. It's overcoming the forces of evil that create those barriers of doubt, our own egos, based on the lies that we've usually inherited. When he knows to reject bad and choose good, so he will eat butter and honey. When he knows to reject bad and choose good, highly messianic phrase. I think it's from Isaiah. So it's 1,130, exactly the same. And this is what we've got to be able to, we've got to reject Metatron and choose good, Moshiach ben Yosef. He is good. We've got to reject serving a slave with a handmaid instead of the queen. We've got to go for the queen and the king. We've got to we've got to reject every single last thing about it. Am I doing this because I'm serving something other than Yod He Vav? We've got to be empowered by the truth. Okay, and that's connected to all these things. And together they come to 1,324, which is 4 times 331, 4 times Ephraim. Okay. And then this is why I've picked this out as well. This is why it's related to this whole concept of the king's daughters. This king's daughters comes from this one here, 2 Samuel 13:10. It says, now she had on a striped tunic. This is actually a coat of many colours. Okay. Ketoneth posim, exactly the same coat, exactly the same word as the coat that Yaakov made for Yosef that was torn by the brothers. The daughters had this on. It says, now she had on a striped tunic, for in this manner the king's virgin daughters dressed. So that's where we get the king's daughters from, Banot HaMelech, in robes. And his servant brought her outside and locked the door after her. Okay, so it's highly related to Yosef. And this was Tamar. This is the next verse. This is Tamar going into Amnon and him raping his own sister. And then she took him outside and she rent this garment as well. So this is the state of exile, isn't it? That needs rectifying. It's again connected to this coat of many colours. So we're in a state of exile where we're not wearing the garments that we should be wearing. We're not wearing the garments of the daughters of a king. Emunah, true emunah v'bitachon. We've got some bedraggled garments on that are making us look like Cinderella, and we're cleaning out the chimney when we should be, going on these wonderful hunting expeditions, bringing these forces of doubt and bringing these, reveling in joy and love at the work that we've got to do to transform this darkness into light and this concealment into revelation, for the sake of the glory of our Father to be revealed, his name to be revealed in truth, and for us to see the King over King, see the King over Kings, see the Mashiach enthroned, to see him come, to see all of humanity elevated up to the true level of consciousness, rather than trapped in this pitiful, fearful reality that we don't belong in. Okay, so I think I've got to the end of it now. We'll see on this next slide. Oh yeah, I have. So please, if anybody got to this, if anybody finished this, you'll have had a real treat, won't you? you're a very blessed person, as from my perspective, because I know the light that was flowing through me whilst I was putting these teachings together, and that has sustained me whilst I've been wobbling on for all this time. But for you especially, shalom. And please subscribe to receive new teachings and share these videos to light up the world with the good news. And I thank you in advance for your consideration.